There's like the circus trick side of things where they think they're doing perceptual cognitive training by adding lights and balls dropping. Can you improve somebody's ability to do that quickly? Yes, but you're getting better at the game of touching lights, not necessarily the game of getting better at your sport.
Welcome to the Coach 'em Up podcast. My name is Tim Riley. Zach Zillner is not joining me today. Before I introduce my guests, let's have a chat, a talk, some house cleaning, a knee. You know, if you've been here a while, you know the vibes. There are two types of people on planet Earth. There are, in fact, subscribers and non-subscribers. To all of our subscribers, thank you so much. You keep the show free. You help me bring on badass guests. Thank you. To all our non-subscribers, maybe you're here for the first time, or maybe you've been here for a while and for whatever reason you just haven't been able to make the commitment. I just want to ask you this question. How's that showing up for you in the rest of your life? The commitment issue thing. Is it still an issue? It feels like it's an issue. You can start by addressing that. And look, you don't have to address this issue across every avenue of your life immediately right away. In fact, I would say that would be bad advice. Here's some good advice. Some unsolicited advice, one might say. Fix your commitment issues one step at a time by hitting the subscribe button. Now that that's out of the way, I would like to introduce today's guest, Q Willey. Q,
What's
hello.
going on? Change of direction.
Yes, you like it. Oh, that was elite. It'll make more sense in a minute. Q, you and I just had a glorious upper body session. It was absolutely fantastic. And we're here at this gym in Austin, Texas. By the way, since last time you were on the show to now, you have since moved to Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
How is it?
Dude, we love Austin.
Yeah.
All of the reasons why you convinced
the propaganda.
me and everyone.
I'm trying to convince everyone to move here. It's true.
The whole like truck ride was just a sell of coming to Austin. It fucking worked. It worked. It's great. I like Austin a lot, man. Cool place. So
good.
The mayor of Austin got us to move down.
Well, that's I don't know. If I'm the mayor of Austin, then it's swirling the toilet bowl. It's on the way down. I'm happy you're here.
Thank you, man. It's good to be here.
Look, obviously I know who you are, but since the last time you've been on, a lot of people have actually subscribed to the podcast, and we've got more listeners. So there may be some people who are not familiar. Real quick, your background, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah, well, first, cheers to overcoming commitment issues for all those subscribers out there. Excellent.
Big deal.
Yeah, taking one step at a time.
One step at a time, guys. Yeah.
The best thing I could say, in short, I was a strength and conditioning coach, super interested in coaching for a long time. I was an athlete myself. It started with an obsession of, I came from this idea that if I could just know enough, I could be good enough. And if I just knew more things, this determinism that if I just could know all the training things and be better, I would be the most elite athlete this world had ever seen.
That's so right.
It didn't work out. But I know more now, which is great. I just became obsessed with the training process. Thought I wanted to do a PhD, so I pursued a master's in exercise physiology, coached at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill with men's and women's basketball, got involved with the Olympic sports, and the basketball head strength coach there said, hey, go get a medical degree. If you can, come back to S&C. So that's what I did. Just applied to PT school out of nowhere. Like 2 weeks later, moved, did PT school with the hopes that I would come back to S&C. And that's kind of what I've been doing. So the last several years, I worked with football, worked with a lot of elite athlete kind of environments, or even recreational adult athletes, active folks that want to compete in something, whether it's Apex now, which is awesome, or, whether it's just pick up basketball or soccer, that kind of thing, or they want to sprint and jump, all that, and maybe have accumulated some injuries along the way. So kind of operate as a physical therapist, strength coach, somewhere in between, try to blend the two as best as I can to help people train with and navigate injury while still making some gains.
Speaking of Apex, I just pulled up the app here. No. Q is top 7 all time.
Cool.
Yeah. He also glossed over the fact that I asked him to come compete like 2 days prior to the Austin, Texas event, and he podiumed. He came in third place. fucking freak show of an athlete. It's actually incredibly aggravating. I just want to go ahead and throw that out there too. But
thank you.
Yeah, man, very impressive stuff. So the dude's still getting after it. And actually, we were going to talk about this later, but since it's heading this way now, let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
You're playing lacrosse again.
Yeah, dude. Oh, it's so fun.
Tell me about it.
Well, a friend of yours, Kyle Hartzell.
Shout out Kyle, friend of the show.
Freak athlete,
Yep.
Great lacrosse player. You know, I mean, it was like super motivating to watch him come back to the PLL at 40 years old and still like ball out.
So cool.
Oh, the coolest. And whenever any athlete does that late into their 30s or almost their 40s, like it's so awesome to see that. And yeah, there's a great town league here in Austin where guys come for summer internships from D1 programs and they'll play in the summer. A lot of guys that played at very high levels, even some PLL guys that are now retired that just live here in Austin, took a job, that come out and ball.
So cool.
So yeah, it's great, dude. It's been so much fun to step back in. I mean, that was a thing that all growing up, that ate my entire adolescent time and interest all through college. That was my whole identity, was lacrosse player. That's just what I was. Everything I trained for, the reason why I became obsessed with training, why I'm here as a PT is probably thankfully because of lacrosse.
Yeah.
I just want to be a better lacrosse player.
Also, I'm going to jump in here. Q also is a national champion. He played lacrosse at the University of North Carolina. He glossed over that as well. So just,
Sure.
gas me up a little.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very fortunate to be at the right time with the right teams and the right players to create the best environment. I take no credit for any of that. The same with like any of the education stuff. I landed sharing a desk with Greg Knuckles and Eric Trexler at the University of North Carolina. Those who don't know them, they're just incredible savant level knowledge in the nutrition and sports science and training science levels of things. And I just got to like happen to share a desk with them in the same office.
Sick.
So I just kept finding myself in really advantageous positions, both on the
A lot of good luck.
Yeah, I did.
A lot of good luck.
100%. And rose to the occasion, saw the value, and wanted to be a part of it. So yeah, dude, playing sports as an adult, I think a lot of people shy away from it because they're like, oh, dude, like I don't want to get hurt. Like,
yep.
Like I don't want to get concussed or I don't want to like injure myself, tear an ACL. And I guess I'm kind of at a point where, dude, I've been training for so long, and as you know, and anyone out there listening knows this too, like you can get hurt training, you can get hurt doing nothing.
Yes.
Like stepping off a curb, you could get hurt driving your car that I'm like, dude, this gives me so much value in life. You get hurt doing anything.
Yep.
I might as well live life to the fullest that I can. And that's something that makes me feel super connected to this world that I love.
Yeah.
I'm not giving that up.
Yep.
My body can still do it, dude.
Yeah.
I'm going. We're doing this thing.
How old are you?
35.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's so awesome.
Yeah, man. So I'm going to run that into the ground. I'll play as long as I can. Absolutely. Dude, it's been so much fun to play again that I don't know.
You're playing, is it once a week?
Twice. Yeah.
Dude, you're playing 2 lacrosse games a week?
Yeah, we have like pickup on Wednesday night, which gets like pretty aggressive. Naturally, as it does. And then there's games on the weekends. There's also an indoor league here in Austin, the Scorpions, that play box league that I'm going to try to get with them as well. So hopefully I could play 2 or 3 times a week coming up here soon.
You are so back.
Oh, I'm so back, baby.
You are so back. Yeah,
dude,
you're
like,
sick.
Oh, yeah. When I'm ill. I'm obsessed again.
Good for you, dude.
Yeah. I went to Chicago this past week just for a family member type situation, and I literally looked up online, okay, is there pickup lacrosse going on in Chicago? And I found a spot that had pickup lacrosse in Chicago, and I checked a bag with my gear and brought a stick. Like, I'm in. I'm so in, dude.
That's so cool.
So
I'm actually pretty impressed. I didn't realize that in major cities there was accessibility to be able to go and play pickup lacrosse, because it's not like going to, like the local LA Fitness and playing a pickup basketball game. Like there's just more to it. So that's actually, I find that pretty unique.
Yeah. I think it's kind of akin to like rugby, where you're hitting people, like and you need field space, you need outdoor field space, but there's enough of a niche interest in that sport, and it grew so much through like the early 2010s. Like it just exploded in the country, that there's enough people. It's a sport that is rough, but not quite to the point like football, where it's like, you want to go play a football game, like pick up football.
Yeah.
That's what are we doing?
You're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it.
Yeah. Have you seen the 37 and under football clips on Instagram?
No, dude.
Oh my God.
What is
this? When you're done listening to this podcast, okay? Instagram, TikTok, spend a little time and just type in 37U, okay? And it's a 37. Why they pick 37, I don't know. But 37 and under adult football league, and it is as garbage as you might expect it to be. And they're playing on fields with like trash and like holes in the ground and stuff. And they're getting in fist fights. They're getting in fights with the refs. Dude, it is pure fucking cinema.
This is like the longest yard.
Yes, bro. Worse. Yeah, it's a total shit show. But then also like I find myself like, I'm like watching these clips and I'm like, I don't know. I could probably like... Like, how many yards would I pick up in that game? Like, you know what I mean?
How many arm tackles would I make it through?
Yes, exactly. And it's like, no, I would get concussed, you know, just like everybody else out there playing. Anyway, you know, so this just in, turns out change of direction, really important for lacrosse.
Yeah, very.
And this change of direction conversation is really the purpose of today. Totally. So let me frame this a little bit. The topic of change of direction, I feel like in the performance realm, usually like kind of lands in this place where it's either like, you know, people look at it, it's like in training, it's hyper important and it should look as close to quote unquote sport specific as possible. And then there's like this other side of the spectrum, at least it appears to me, where it's like, that's not really something we need to train. You just need to get strong and big and fast and, you know, practice and position specific drills and gameplay will take care of that.
Sure.
Right. Let's start with the definition. Let's just start square one. Change the direction. Q Willey. What is it?
So change of direction essentially is pre-planned. And there has to be a very clear plant step or a very clear moment that you're looking that breaking happened, right? It's not somewhere in the middle. Like maneuverability is the term used for something where maybe you're changing modes of travel. You know, you went from a shuffle into kind of a crossover run into a sprint and there was like curves in there and you're chasing down a ball and there was change of direction that happened, but it wasn't clear, you know, and change of direction training or change of direction in and of itself, when we look at it from that perspective, is more of like, clearly run this way, clearly hard plant, and have a pre-planned task that you're doing, versus agility is more reactive. Now you're reacting to an opponent.
Okay.
You know, and I think in the training sphere, people probably think of like lights, dropping a ball, a whistle, maybe another athlete that they're competing against. That kind of stuff is now agility. Agility in the truest sense is what happens on the field. You know, I'm defending someone, they're running full speed at me, trying to shake me, make a move, and I'm reacting to go with them. And whatever happens, it's probably less technical. It's less clear foot plants. It's, I don't know, did you stay with them or did you not? Right? That's kind of what we're talking about. Like sport training. Yeah.
Got it. Mm. And within the context of like where it falls along this spectrum, because this is something I've struggled with personally. Like I used to, you know, when I would think about changing direction or agility training, you know, the first time I heard the take, just get stronger, get faster, get more explosive, do plyos, and you're good. And then as time has gone on, I've kind of arrived at this place where it's like, well, I don't know that that's actually true at all. If my goal is to prepare people to be able to execute things on the field or on the court or whatever, then if I'm not preparing their tissues for the demands of those things specifically, not recreating what's happening in the sport, but just like, you know, the demands on the tissues or the stimulus itself, then like, am I doing my job? Question mark, you know? So anyway, I don't know if that's more of a question and more of just like I think a collective idea that a lot of people kind of struggle with or grapple with, and kind of opening up for your thoughts and opinions there.
Yeah, totally fair too, right? Like I've heard both sides of the spectrum. Everything has to look exactly like sport if you want maximum transference, or no, we just need to really improve your squat. We really need to improve your leg extension and calf raise or something like that. We'll let sport just take care of it. Just get strong in the weight room. Everything else will fall into place. Mm-hmm. And I understand the logic behind both sides. I think what this conversation is trying to do with change of direction training is not saying that change of direction training is this massively important thing that everyone needs to do, and if you're not doing it, you're a terrible coach. That's not what I'm going to say.
Yep.
What I would say, though, is change of direction training for me is a lot like a mediator. It's a bridge, if you will, between what's going to happen in chaotic environments on the field and what happens in very static environments in the weight room. That the same way we do plyos for reasons of coordination, stiffness, to build some kind of tendon, musculotendinous unit coordination, pattern, rhythm, timing, even if it doesn't have to do specifically with the exact motion that's going to happen. Like, no one's skipping very often in a basketball court. You're not like actually doing a right,
yeah,
right,
you better
left.
not. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not doing like a right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, like rhythmic hop, right? Like no one's doing that. But is it valuable? Yes, absolutely. So change of direction is just trying to take, okay, what are the parameters that happen physiologically? What are the kinematics? What are the impulse curves? Trying to expose athletes to those things in different joint positions that I know that in some level of controlled chaos, if you will,
Sure.
that they were successful and exposed to the thing, that I've seen it in a way that now that physical quality can show up later on when it becomes a little bit more chaotic. And if you're not doing that at all, if you separate things so bipolar into one category or the other, I think you're missing the mark, the same way that we don't look at sprinting that way or speed training. I know a lot of people listening probably are interested or have competed in Apex or have interest in doing that or sprinting in general if they're on this listening to this podcast channel.
Sure.
You wouldn't expect that like, oh, I'm just going to get my max back squat up or my power clean up and I'm going to be the fastest athlete ever. Like, you still have to sprint.
Yes.
But pre-planned sprinting is sprint training. Starting from a 2-point or a 3-point or a 4-point stance and going when you want to go or going on a whistle, that's still pre-planned. It's not sport, but like, could sprint training make you potentially better at your sport because you can just run a little faster for maybe a little longer than the person next to you, that you get to the ball a little bit sooner and you have better skills because of that? You touch the ball more often? Like, yeah. So I think change of direction is just one of those things in the middle where we're saying like, well, there has to be something to sort of sway or mediate this gap between chaos in this environment versus control in this one. And it's a big miss, I think, if you just kind of like say, we don't care about it at all.
So another thing that just came to me, and maybe I'm skipping too far ahead here, so please tell me if I am, but another layer to the change of direction and also, agility conversation is, and I actually quite appreciate this. So I would, instead of just having like pre-planned stuff, most of the time I would just put athletes in an environment where they compete, right? And like, that's just the way I would check the boxes. And like, for example, maybe it's like a 5-10-5 or whatever, and it's just a race, and I'm going to clap and you're going to go, which is obviously fun and engaging and competitive. And whenever I can do those things, I want to, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay, like, maybe for a lot of athletes, particularly in like a return to play setting, for example, like that doesn't make sense.
Sure.
And certainly like we wouldn't be in a situation where we would like have someone coming back from like a sprained ankle or an ACL, whatever. Right. And it's like, oh, you're cleared. Okay, great.
Sure.
Let's do this 5-10-5 hyper competitive drill. Right. That doesn't sound smart.
Right.
So anyway, I guess all that to say, like, can you tease out a little bit more for us, like the difference between, change of direction and like having like a pre-planned idea of what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen in isolation, and then also like the agility side, where what I'm talking about, which is like that more competitive, perhaps would it be fair to say advanced?
Yeah.
Or an escalation of change direction?
Yeah, it's all a spectrum, right? It's all a sliding scale, the same way that any training parameter is a sliding scale. Like you don't necessarily take someone who hasn't sprinted in a long time and say, I want you to run 100% max efforts for this amount of volume that I would give somebody who's advanced. So it's all a nuanced spectrum art, if you will.
By the way, him saying that is inferring that that is something you should not do. I just want to...
Let's be clear. Yes.
Don't do that.
No, don't take a novice person who hasn't sprinted in years and have them sprint
We're
max
running
effort.
60s today, Becky.
Right.
Yeah, strap in.
Susan from accounting does not need 60s on day one.
Out the gate. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, it's
Continue
perfect.
your thought.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, we do not do that. To be clear, let's set the stage. It's the same in return to play if somebody's coming off of an injury, and maybe adolescent, or maybe if you're just working on the performance side, let's take injury out of it because maybe that's a little bit deeper of a topic and we're just focusing surface level of the base of this argument first. you might do something that's a little bit more reactive. You might do something that's a little bit more open just to see what the athlete does. What is their baseline of like, how are they getting the task done? And you can use that as your evaluation to be like, okay, I can pick out like 3 or 4 things that this athlete is not doing well. And you give them a couple of reps at it and it keeps showing up, whether you use video camera or just using your naked eye. If you've done it enough, you'll start seeing these patterns show up if you know what you're looking for. And that's an evaluation. Now, at some point you do have to close the gate, or you have to close the drill down a little bit and say like, well, I need to isolate that thing. I need to inform you that you're doing that thing. See if you can change it. See if we can make something. If you can't, then it probably requires some level of training. If even after training, you still really can't do it, maybe I'm starting to think, yeah, there's probably some physiological quality there that's not allowing you to do that thing that I want you to do, that may require a little bit more training. So it's kind of like a tiered system, if you will, of kind of working down the layers of why is this thing happening that I'm seeing show up. But you don't know if it's going to show up until you just let them kind of do it. So there is a level of chaos that you need to see and see how they're performing on the field to start. But when we're looking at this like reactivity, so Lee Taft has a lot of like tier systems, or the way that he looks at things, and I really like it. He talks about in the first level or tier of like something that's reactive, it may be off an athlete's movement, or it may be a whistle, a clap of some kind, but I know where I'm going and there's only one direction I can go. So if I'm facing you and the drill was on the clap, we are both going to race to our right hand side through the cone that's 5 yards to our right. Okay, I know what's going to happen, but I'm reacting to something. But once that reaction happens, everything else is pre-planned. Got it. Right? Then you start adding layers and say, okay, now tier 2 would be like, I don't know which direction I'm going to go, but once I react and I then know which direction I'm going to go, then it's planned. So now we can go either left or right. There's going to be a clap. And so I know that that signals something needs to happen. But now let's say you're the offensive player, I'm the defensive player, and I'm reacting to what you do. It could be right or left, but once we go right or left, I know the drill. Or you want to race 5-10-5, it could be like once we clap, I'm reacting if you're going to start the 5-10-5 to your left or start the 5-10-5 to your right, and then we're just racing after that, right? So you can layer on reactivity based on, do I know what's happening once it happens or do I not? So the very end of that whole spectrum is like, okay, now we're not statically starting, we're already moving. There's already movement happening. It's already chaotic. I know how the drill ends. Like if you make it through this cone or you make the ball into this hoop, just like a game, I know when the drill is kind of over, but I don't know how many times I'm going to have to change direction or what's going to happen in between. You could go right, you could go left, you could roll. Now it's chaos. So I don't know how many changes of directions. I don't know which direction. I just know the end task. Does that make sense? Totally. And that's kind of the way that we look at this in terms of, you know, what makes something reactive. I would also say early on in the rehab process, sure, things are going to be a lot more controlled because I don't know what's going to happen. We talk about something called the reverse Marilyn Monroe effect, which is, yeah, that's funny. Marilyn Monroe had this quote, and I took this from Chris Juno, where she said that if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best. And the reverse of that in rehab is like, why do we do force plate testing? Why do we do isometric strength testing? Well, if I put you in a super static, not chaos environment and you still can't do the thing or you still can't produce force, I know there's no way in hell you're going to do it when it's chaotic. Totally. So you have to check boxes in static ways, and I have to see that, yeah, you can do that well. The same way that, like, yeah, if you're, and I'm not a big fan of movement screens, but if somebody wanted to like snatch and their overhead squat was really painful or they just couldn't get to an overhead squat, well, I'm pretty confident you're not going to be able to snatch that well if you just can't like overhead squat with any amount of weight. You know what I mean? So it's the same idea, and change of direction. Like if you can't run 5 yards and turn around and go the other direction that makes it even look something like an athlete would do, I don't feel very confident that I can add another athlete into the drill or throw a ball and you're going to look good now. So there's a spectrum of this. And with rehab, sure, you might start with audio and visual cueing. I'm going to show you the direction I want to go, and I'm going to tell you. So your eyes can look at me and you hear. I'm giving you a lot of help. Yeah. And then I'm slowly peeling away layers where I may go, I want you to only see, then I'm going to only give audio, right? And based on what they're dealing with, some athletes like ACL, they'll really want to look at the floor. They'll want to see where the ground is all the time. They don't want to look up at you. So the first layer might be... Is that it's just like a protective mechanism? Like they're just hyper aware of anything underfoot because they're so scared about
re-injuring the knee or foot or whatever.
Yeah, for sure, man. It just makes them feel good to like see the ground and
They want to see the knee.
Yeah. And see where their foot's going to hit, see the cone. But if then asking them to like bring their eyes up, it's like, okay, now you have to do this. And from the waist down, you can't see. It has to be more like by feel. And they haven't done that in a long time. That's scary too, right? So giving them just an audio cue alone without the visual part allows them to now just stare down, and they can just react right or left, but it gives them this feeling of safety that I can look down. So that might be the first level. And then I'm taking away audio. Now you got to look at me, and now you got to see a reaction. And I may just start with points, right? Just something like a finger gun, one way or the other.
Sure.
Easy. And then you can start changing it into like, okay, now I'm going to move my shoulders. I'm going to move my hips to that side. And then you're laying on reactivity, in that way too. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So it's all a spectrum. There isn't one right way to do change of direction. I also am not somebody who's thinking like every single person out there training needs change of direction. I don't think that's true either, but just understand there's a lot of ways to do this. Is it important? Yeah, I think so. I think exposing athletes to change of direction is massively helpful, but there's a lot of ways that might look based on who you're working with and in what phase of training program, what phase of rehab that could look.
The Coach 'em Up podcast has partnered with OVR. In the world of athletic performance testing, OVR has seriously changed the game. From their timing gates, vertical jump testing units, and their velocity-based tracking systems, they're simple, easy to use, reliable, and incredibly precise. And now they've added a force plate into their star-studded lineup. At $14.99, it has a built-in display, is simple to use, and here's the best part, no subscription. That's right, no subscription. They even have an app where you can track all of your athletes, export your data, run live leaderboards, and see your results in real time. Everything you need in one place. If you're not testing, you're just guessing. Click the link in the show notes and gamify your training. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you see people make when trying to implement change of direction training into an athlete's program? And I know context is highly dependent here, so I'm sure it matters, but are there any broad strokes consistencies that you see across different sports where people miss the mark in introducing change of direction training?
That's a great question. Yeah, from the coaching side versus what I see athletes do, those are two kind of separate things. Like, what are common things that you see athletes do in change of direction training that you need a cue versus what are coaches doing out there?
Can we do both?
Yeah.
I think both are very telling.
Totally. Yeah. I think from the coaching side, you do have a camp that just feels if I just get them strong, they'll be good enough, and they don't even touch change of direction training at all. I think that's probably a miss. Now, with young athletes, if you just get them generally physically stronger, are you going to improve their ability to do a host of things? Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's where maybe people hang their hat too much. Like even in the rehab process, like ACL or we were talking about, or even just coming out of pain, like if somebody is able to just produce more force, whether it's absolutely or in a shorter period of time, are there other numbers also going to improve? Yeah. Mm-hmm. You would expect that to happen. That's a very logical thing, but I think some people just end there and maybe don't take it far enough that they think that they've just done their job if they got them there. And it's you might have got them 60 to 80% of the way there, but there's another 20% you could eke out if you just knew how to do it and could see it through a little bit further. So I think that's probably an error. I think that people really make the error on the other side of the spectrum as coaches where they think they're doing perceptual cognitive training by adding lights and balls dropping, thinking that they're doing something that's really agility and reactive training, and it probably has very little transference to the actual sport.
We've all seen, I've seen the lights, and then there's what's the other thing? It's the semicircle ring, and it a post drops.
Yep.
And you got to grab the post.
Yes.
And whenever I see that, my initial reaction is what the fuck is this doing? Yeah. There's certainly nothing, right? I'm just getting good at grabbing posts out of the air.
Correct. Yeah. There's the circus trick side of things. And this happens in PT, this happens in the performance world where it's looks sexy, looks kind of fun, looks sporty, but it doesn't really make somebody better at the thing that you actually care about long term, the outcome. Mm-hmm. So we talked before the show started, in elite athletes, probably one of the number one predictors of who's going to be best at agility is the cognitive perceptual side of things. But the number one predictor of somebody who has good cognitive perceptual ability is anticipation. That anticipation meaning that they move before the person has actually made the move, or they've already anticipated like a second or a slight moment ahead of time what's probably most likely going to happen. That it looks like on screen, like, oh my gosh, this guy is so reactive. He's so good at reading the play. But so much of that has to do with the context of the game, the subtleties in the posture of an athlete. That athlete, that I've been guarding has gone to his right hand 3 times up to this point. I think he's probably going to go to his right hand again. Mm-hmm. Like all of that type of thing and film review, that probably plays into more of this cognitive perceptual ability versus decision making. There's like Sophia Nymphius and their like kind of research group have talked about this on other podcasts and in their papers where yes, you can have some people that are a little bit slow decision makers, but that's rare. Generally, people can become fairly quick at making the right decision. It's can you get your body to now task couple to get your body to move in that direction, which requires you to have the necessary force capabilities or the physical qualities to make that decision, as well as all of the contextual gameplay. So if a light goes off and all I have to do is tap the light with my hand, can you improve somebody's ability to do that quickly? Yes, but you're getting better at the game of touching lights, not necessarily the game of getting better at your sport. I'm not going to become a better lacrosse defender by touching lights. Right. I'm going to become a better lacrosse defender by reading the posture of this athlete, almost like, those visual drills or those visual things that you look at and there's not an image and you kind of like zoom out and you have to unfocus your eyes long enough that the image starts coming out.
Yes.
I think about that like when you're defending someone, you can't get so perseverating on like a point or an object because saccadic eye movement is also something that's tied a lot to inexperience versus elite athletes. And elite athletes have a very calm gaze.
Yes.
And those who are not very elite will kind of be like scattered and a lot of saccadic eye movement happening because they're like, they don't know what to focus on. And if you can just zoom out and see like the whole picture, both like periphery as well as what's happening here. And it's just everything slows down, that flow state.
Yes.
You're trying to get people to that, but that doesn't happen by touching lights. So I think on the circus trick side of things, you have, or the spectrum, we had people that just think strength training will do all of it. And then we had people doing a lot of circus tricks thinking this is agility and reactive. And neither probably are doing what actually makes a difference in the context that they think they are.
Right. Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. Actually that reminds me something that you said earlier around like, cause I leaned more towards, change of direction, agility training, waste of time. Let's just improve physical qualities. Now, a lot of that had to do with the fact that I'd spent up until that point in time almost all of my career working with high school and middle school athletes. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't worked with people where it's like, oh, they're already really big and strong and fast. So, totally. And like that's not going to move the needle anymore. But you did say something that I think is interesting that implies that you need to have some level of technical understanding of why someone is or isn't able to complete a task, change direction. And then also have enough of that, of a coaching eye from, a quality perspective to be able to say, oh, the reason that they're not completing this task is because they're just undertrained or weak or whatever. And I think also that's kind of what makes that difficult to suss out is like, because there are times where it is like, oh, someone just isn't strong enough getting out of this cut, right? Totally. But that doesn't mean that like those things are mutually exclusive or like exist on their own all the time. Totally. So I guess what I'm getting to here, I don't want to ramble too long,
no,
but
good.
The question is like, what are some of the things that you're looking for from the technical side when you see someone going into a pre-planned cut, change direction, and they're trying to head right back the other direction? What are the things that you're seeing that might intimate to you that like this is more of a technical issue? And then on the other end of the spectrum, like what are some of the things that you might be looking for where it is like more of a specific physical quality?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, and first to give a selling point, not just to you, but to any listener who may be in that spectrum where it's like, nah, man, it's just about the physical qualities. change of direction, like deceleration, has about 2 to 3 times greater ground reaction force than acceleration. That anywhere from about 50 to 80% more force or greater rate of force is being applied in the initial steps per meter of deceleration than any acceleration. Now, in any game, this has been studied primarily in basketball and soccer, you're going to have between 80 to 120% more decels than accels in a game scenario. So there's already a huge demand on deceleration. That World Cup just happened, so soccer is like in everybody's forefront of mind. The FIFA was awesome. Right?
Yeah,
How cool was World Cup?
It was awesome.
And that almost, or at least the majority of key moments in a game, like goals or assists, are immediately preceded by a successful deceleration type play or moment. So if we know that deceleration precedes some of the key moments in games that change wins and losses, that there's more of them, and that deceleration has far greater force output than acceleration, even if all you cared about was training stimulus, output, it would still serve you well to train deceleration or change of direction training because the output would be higher. And it is also something that athletes will get exposed more to than any other type of thing that's going to happen on the field. So that may just be a selling point of like, oh, this does have value, even if you don't agree with anything I've said to this point about the cognitive perceptual stuff, and you think that gameplay is the only thing that matters. Great, that's fine, but just understand if you do care about outputs and training, you're going to get a greater output from doing decel training. Now, obviously, volume comes into play. How much of it do you have to do? Or how much of it can you get away with without accruing too much tissue? Intolerance, if you will, and overtraining, whatever you want to talk about in that category could be a factor there. And I'll leave that up to the coaches and what we'll talk about later in the programming. But again, if we just care about stimulus and output, it is important because there's a lot more of it and at a higher degree than what you get in any other type of training. So there's that.
Yeah.
Now, the second part of your question was around the technical piece. Yeah. What am I looking for? So Damien Harper and Thomas DeSantos have done probably more research on change of direction training than just about anyone in the world. It's a group in the UK. Their blog that's really good is Multi-Directional Science of Speed, I think is what it's called. Really great blog if anyone out there wants to just like really dive into the change of direction space and research more. But they have developed something called the CMAS. And the CMAS is basically a very simple way of looking at change of direction, looking at decelerations, and the types of body mechanics that we generally look for. It's just a kinematic model, the same way that we have ones for like acceleration, that you'll see the kinograms of people running, and kind of some general patterns or models that we're trying to look upright running, which should a max, like Ken Clark and stuff. Sure. Have these kinograms. So it's basically like that. And a couple of things you're looking for is that when I come into a linear decel, there's always going to be a slight widening of the base, because if I keep my base very narrow, that's going to limit my shin angle to dictate if I can go right, left, or hip turn and go the other way. If I keep everything really tight and under me, at some point, if I want to change direction, my feet have to leave or come out my center of mass so that I get shin angle, because just like in sprinting forward, we talk about shin angle has to roll. A positive shin angle to propel you forward. Well, the same happens side to side. Yeah. And the only way that happens is if the knee comes in and your feet go out. Right. The knee has to be inside the foot and the knee has to be slightly outside the hip in order to get me, think about necks, from shoulder to foot. So that needs to happen. We also want to see center of mass drop. If an athlete stays really tall or they just fold at the hip and their knee stays straight, that's also not going to be very advantageous, both for keeping their head up, being balanced. If their knee or their nose is way over their skis, they're probably going to fall forward. It just limits your degrees of freedom to make another move if you had to, whether that's acceleration or punching the other direction. So those are some things. If we don't need to go over all the CMAS type things. There's like 9 principles, I think, of the CMAS. One of them is the widening of the base, sinking down, the block foot, opening the hip. If you want like a little bit of trunk and hip association into the new direction that you're going to orient into, you want to see that stuff happen. I see a lot of athletes will, even really strong, big athletes will bleed the trunk over. They call that the whip and nene, kind of effect where you're kind of like the Tom and Jerry, like cartoons skidding out.
I fear that might be me at this point. Well, you were talking about, all the decels in a soccer game and a basketball game, and it got me thinking, if anyone here listening, if you've ever taken a significant amount of time off playing a field sport or basketball and then you go play a pickup basketball game, you are fucking wrecked.
Unreal, dude.
For days after, if you have not been exposed to that. And it's from the decels. It's not from, starting. Yeah. It's from stopping suddenly over and over and over again, trying to guard someone or trying to get separation.
Yeah. Dude, your groin.
Oh my God.
The hip flexor and groin area after playing pickup basketball, if you haven't. Good Lord, dude.
Yeah. And like my like lateral lower leg,
Yeah. Oh, dude, yeah, peroneal.
Cooked.
You absolutely cooked.
Absolutely cooked.
Dude, but to that point, so I go back and play lacrosse as an adult, right? And I haven't played lacrosse in almost a decade.
Yeah.
But I've been doing a lot of change of direction training for the last year or two and was kind of ramping up because I put out that course. So I was doing a lot of demos and doing it more and I was enjoying it. And I knew that I was signed up for lacrosse. I hadn't started yet. So I was like, shoot, dude, I got to get myself ready for that.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, from a physical capacity, I was there. I did not get beat up from all the change of direction and stuff. It was more the cognitive perceptual side of getting, shaking the rust off of knowing the game speed.
Totally.
Again. But from a physical standpoint, yeah, if I put my foot in the ground, I could make that thing happen.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I just think I guess maybe I'm drinking my own Kool-Aid too much in that case because I found that I did a bunch of change of direction training. I went and played a sport I haven't played at a pretty high level that I haven't played in almost a decade, and I was hanging.
Yeah.
I could do it. And I didn't have massive physical detriments for days after where I was so beat up that I couldn't do it again.
Walking like an old man.
Yeah. But exactly. Oh, the saddle sore.
Yes, exactly.
It really feels like that, doesn't it? And I didn't have
Taint is in shambles.
Yeah. Taint got to paint.
Shout out taints. Everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just, I'm going to be thinking of taints.
I'm sorry, I broke Q.
You tainted it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just such a salesman now for hey, I think it has value here, guys, because I went back to playing at a high level and I was fine. And it took me a while to get the game speed back, but physically I was there. And I don't think I would have been there if I only been sprinting or conditioning. I think there's something unique there because you're exposing yourself to these angles and these positions repetitively that there's something there.
So before we get into some practical, pragmatic ways to start, introducing this into your programming or personal training, I think it's probably worth spending a little time on the difference between return to play and quote unquote training, for an athlete that's healthy and that spectrum and where they're similar and dissimilar. And maybe let's maybe get a framework around what that spectrum really is in your mind, and then where we fall along those lines.
Yeah, there's a lot there that also ties into what you were talking about with the technical thing. So if somebody's dealing with a knee related injury, right, linear decel is going to be really challenging for them because one of the primary things that's going to stop you from going forward and staying forward is the quad. It is the knee, right? The soleus is going to be a big airbag cushion as you resist that plantar flexion and resist the shin from rolling forward further. Soleus is going to be a big player in decel. Same with the glute. If I hinge forward, you're going to get them more of that RDL kind of looking position. So yes, the glute and the hamstrings are also going to help forward track, or reduce the amount of forward momentum. But an ACL person is going to have a hard time complying in their knee. They don't want to bend their knee. They want to avoid the quad because there's trauma there. And so you're going to use other strategies to make it happen, but that probably doesn't serve very well. And also if you're staying above that 30-degree knee bend and coming into decels, it's a really good way to re-tear that ACL. You're going to get too much forward translation of the tibia that you're going to re-pop it or pop the other side because you're just still using this very high strategy. So early on in the ACL or somebody that's been dealing with even patellar femoral pain or patellar tendinopathy, any kind of anterior knee pain in general, they're going to want to avoid getting down into that knee. So that's one of the primary things you have to get good at sitting in the chair. We have to get that knee to comply because any any change of direction, whether I'm doing it on a curve or, if I got to go back this direction or plant and turn my hips the other way, a deceleration moment linearly precedes that, right? I have to be able to throw brakes on at some point going forward in order to then change, whether it's a Y position or go anew. So there's always some amount of linear decel that will be present in any cut. And it's just a matter of how much.
Yeah, even I'm thinking even in a 5-10-5, there's a boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
exactly going into that cut. But those first two big are, you're facing the line and you're sinking hips and you're changing levels so that you can actually turn your hips thereafter.
Yeah, exactly. So you have like just like a dunk, you have the penultimate step and then the ultimate blocking step, right?
Yep.
And you have an antepenultimate, which is the third step away from your final step. And those first initial steps, we know that great decelerators, great people that change direction well, can throw down a lot of force and can throw it down very early in decel. They don't take a long time to get there. They're not spreading that out over a lot of steps to decel. When they want to hit the brakes, they can sink, hit a brake moment, and get off the ground a couple of times and really stop momentum fast. And then that final foot contact is more of the propulsive step in the new direction. You'll see a lot of athletes, and it can be a benefit, like it depends on your sport and what position you are, but they'll turn the toes inward and get more to the outside edge of the foot. If I'm staying linear and my shoulders and hips are square, you'll see them really plant to the outside and create that blocking step. And that can be really valuable if I know I want to turn my hips or I need to go backwards again, like a fadeaway shot.
Yeah.
Great. Give yourself a ton of friction into the ground and as much strong tissue as possible to make that pop happen. What we don't want to see is that, like, if I'm approaching someone as a defender in lacrosse and I'm breaking down and this guy could potentially go to his right or his left, well, I don't want to have a blocked foot in that position now because I have to be ready to now open that leg to go the other direction.
Yep.
So now that might not be very advantageous and I need to keep my toes a little bit more linear or even slightly opened, right? And have a little bit more knee glide is something else that Lee Taft will talk about. If I have a open, externally rotated foot position and I can go into more pronation, I can get my knee to travel forward more. That can be advantageous, but it could also be a lot for somebody who has a weak knee or has a knee that isn't, doing a very good job at taking force right now. So they're going to want to get to the outside edge of their force and toe in.
Yeah.
So like you're looking for some of these patterns of like, how does this person want to accomplish this task? And that's why testing numbers, like if you just test a 505 or you just test the 5-10-5 or the Eldro we were talking about, great.
Yep.
Those could be great, but you also have to film those things and also kind of see how are they accomplishing the task, because your times could be relatively similar between two very different ways of accomplishing the task. And one has a very different yield when it comes to on the field benefit versus the other based on, your body position, how you're sinking, how you're getting there. A 505, for example, will really bias fast acceleration athletes, and it won't show you how fast is their actual change of direction, because if they're just great accelerators, like they can accelerate into the change of direction fast, even if their change of direction isn't that good, they can turn around and get back through the gate really, really well. Right. So you have to create, or you have to measure or calculate a change of direction deficit, which is essentially measuring their 10-meter time subtracted from their 10 meters of the middle of that 505, the time they crossed the gate and came back. And that creates a change of direction deficit. How much of a subtraction, how slow are you relative to what a 10-meter time is? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now that can bias slower athletes, because if the guy is just slow in 10 meters and he doesn't get that much faster in the 505 because he was just slow to begin with, it's going to be like, whoa, your deficit is not much. That's awesome. So you're playing with some of that, and that's maybe where you calculate momentum. If you want to calculate how big the athlete is, if you're working with like an O lineman, so velocity times kilograms will give you the momentum, and now you can start stratifying in a real like model of like, okay, all these linemen are typically following here. This guy who's really big and about the same size as this guy, he was a lot slower, even though their times are kind of similar. You know what I'm saying? If I had a 265 guy and maybe on the other end of the spectrum a 350 guy, and their times were kind of similar, well, that 260 guy should be faster, right? Does that make sense? So, and if you calculate momentum, you can start really seeing those numbers stratify. Like, oh, he's moving way more mass at the same time that this guy who has way less mass, and that's a problem. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. But technically, in the rehab side of things, I know we're going on a lot of different tangents, so I'm trying to thread this needle here where we need to land. But every injury will have a little bit of a different pattern that they'll start to show up because they're just trying to avoid load to a certain tissue. And you just kind of have to know, like, okay, in this type of a movement, what tissues are typically going to get loaded? If you're running a curve sprint, that's a lot on the ankle. Like if somebody's coming back from an Achilles tendinopathy and you're asking them to run on a curve, well, every time that instep, that inside foot is planting, that foot is going into a lot of pronation, and you're getting to that inside edge of the foot and asking the body to be propelled slightly over that foot based on where they had the Achilles tendinopathy, but typically because of the way the Achilles fibers rotate as they insert on the Achilles, like that is going to be really tough. really hard. They might do fine going the other way, kind of
Right.
like
Yeah.
the Nemo fin. They might be fine swinging on the other side, but they go this way and they can't, and so you can sort of build your program out like, I'm going to have you curve only at this degree over here, but we can turn tighter to that side, and like slowly teasing that out. But that just comes from a lot of repetition and knowing who's in front of you. I don't mean to sound mystical or that like no one can do that other than someone who does it a lot. Like, I don't want to make myself sound like on a pedestal, but it'll show up. Like, they'll tell you it hurts, and you find a different way to kind of like do that same thing in a similar way that they can tolerate, and just build from there.
It does feel like, though, I mean, look, I appreciate you saying that, but it really does feel like you do have to, it's like anything else, like, that's dynamic. There's a coaching eye that is developed from seeing a lot of reps and actually coaching it, or attempting to coach it. And like, you've obviously spent a lot of time learning from other coaches and a lot of inspiration from people like the Lee Tafts of the world. And I think that's a great way to like obviously create a foundation and a solid bedrock from a philosophical standpoint, and like being able to shape some initial impressions as to like, what success might look like. But until you get out there and start coaching people through it, like, I do combine prep, and until like I really started having to coach people up and stand next to Dan Bach and Blaine, and we're all talking and breaking down film, and we're watching the differences not only from like person to person, but like, the differences between those athletes, how they're accomplishing those tasks, where they're losing time. Until you start getting into the weeds of it, like, you have to have reps.
It's true.
To get good at it, dude.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, and I think like there's no secret to it. That's that, you just have to get in there. I mean, for me, it was like.
Do you think that's why a lot of coaches just avoid it altogether?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe, because it is hard. You don't really know what you're doing right away. And I think I got thrown into so many situations just out of pure necessity. It's like, here's 15 guys that you have for 2 hours, 7 days a week with all different injuries. I mean, just the gambit, and it was a revolving door all the time. It was ankle, knee, hip, groin, back, this, it always was changing. Yeah. That like I had just a never ending 7 days a week for 2 hours a day on the field, plus another 2 or 3 hours in the weight room or in small turf spaces with so many individuals. I mean, it was literally 30 to 40 guys a day with varying degrees of injury, some acute, some chronic, some post-surgical, some not, it was just the amount of stuff that you saw in such a short time frame all the time, and having to figure out a way like if I don't do change of direction training, or I don't do something that looks like sport, no one else in this program will. Yep. Because we have the strength coaches that are just doing the strength side of things and getting guys under the bar or lifting. Great. That's a huge segment of what needs to happen. Yep. You also had more of the sports medicine team and the medical providers and athletic trainers that were just doing more like feel good palliative care. And sometimes that's needed, right? Like just getting them through the day and like making sure they can step on the field for the day. Like that's a piece of the pie in an elite sport. I get that. But like if no one was going to do what was in the middle and we were just going to say like, I don't know, he can squat well, so I guess he can play. Well, that doesn't make sense. Yeah,
he hit a certain percentage of his back squat. So he's definitely good to cut real hard.
Yeah, he's good to go. Or his symptoms are low. He said he feels good today, so he can play. Well, feeling good and being prepared to play are very different things. You know what I mean? Like, a guy could feel really good at the start of our session, and I saw 3 505s or a 5-10-5 drill, and I could tell you like, this guy is nowhere close. Not prepared. Not at all. Like an ACL guy turning to their ACL limb, their involved limb on a 180-degree turn, that penultimate step, they will not comply. They do not want to load into that leg. They'll rely all on that final foot contact, and you'll see them bleed over and push off of that, and they're dancing on that inside leg. And they go to the other side, and the exact opposite happens. They go to turn, plant hard, they comply, that outside foot just kind of just taps down, kind of like stiff contact, ding, and gets them off, and it's pushing again from that inside leg. And you can tell, like, yeah, your times might be like kind of similar, like you're within 90%, but that doesn't tell you the story.
Yeah.
You have to be able to see, he is not sinking,
not using that thing.
or he's just folding over his hip on that side when he wants to decel. Like that also isn't meaning he's ready to go back to play. And unless you understand change of direction or are doing some things that are in closed environments, closed drills that are non-reactive, you're seeing this stuff show up. Again, the reverse Marilyn Monroe principle, if you can't do it controlled at your worst, like I can't expect you to do it when it's chaotic.
So you saying that brings me to another topic of discussion here is like, so often in traditional PT settings, it's like, we'll just use the ACL, right? It's like, okay, like there's a certain amount of time, there's like a cookie cutter protocol. Once you're able to demonstrate like this level of strength, it's like, coach, he's cleared.
Yeah.
He's ready to go, or she's ready to go. And it's like, there hasn't been anything actually outside of like the most minimal like strength training exercises to prepare this athlete to come back.
Yeah.
And then now suddenly they're being thrust back into a situation. And really it's just kind of like a sink or swim kind of situation.
Yeah.
I think it's gotten better. But like, I know of facilities here in Austin with youth athletes that have had injuries. They tell me what they're doing for their rehab, and I'm thinking, fuck.
Yeah.
And so what that brings up is like, for the trainer, for the coach, for the person who is identifying that like this person is not getting what they need to be able to return back to sport.
Yeah.
How can the trainer, the coach, the person that isn't a PT start looking at these things and start saying, okay, like, what is like a phasic approach? Maybe this is where we're getting into like kind of the programming consideration conversation. Like what are steps that you can take to help get an athlete, who's been quote unquote cleared, right, to actually like gameplay or practice ready?
So yeah, all of this kind of stuff, and you're absolutely right. Has it gotten better in the field? Yes, but PT still horrifically dropped the ball. I mean, my profession is just a joke, honestly. It's really frustrating. Sometimes we're trying to get better, and I think it is getting better, but it's a slow-moving ship. And then on the other side, you've got trainers that are now, well, we got to take the reins, and they're listening to these 3-letter acronym courses and going to the CEUs that really don't have a lot of medical or evidence backing, and putting all their eggs in that basket and doing all these frou-frou things, thinking that they're doing great, and that like, oh, this is, I'm way smarter than the PTs because I know these terms.
Yeah, because I have them doing, they're catching tennis balls while balancing single leg on a Bosu ball. And doing FRC.
Correct. Exactly. Bingo. So it's just like, there has to be some basic middle ground, that there's like some biological plausibility and physiological underpinnings to all of this, while taking into account that there is psychological factors and other nuanced factors that are happening all the way along the course of an injury and rehab timeline. But like, this is doable. And I think that a trainer or a PT, whatever side you are operating under, as long as you can understand that what tissues get loaded at different rates when I do different tasks, and how do I throttle up and how do I throttle down? How do I progress and regress? If you just can understand that basic thing of like what thing is getting loaded when I ask them to do that task, at what rate, and how much volume can I do of that thing before it's too much, and that we don't always know. We're trying to flirt with that line. It's an experiment, and no one can actually know the official answer to that. You're just trying to get as close without overdoing it as possible, right?
Right.
But that alone will take you 80% of the way there. If you just understand that biological underpinning, right? You don't need to have all of the tools and tricks in your bag, as long as you can understand that. And I think when we look at return to sport or return to performance, there's phasic progressions. There's criteria-based progressions when we talk about like rehab specifically in the surgical process. But even in the return to play, we have return to participation, we have return to play, and then we finally have return to performance. Those are each individual different things, and different traits fall into that. Now, return to participation means I'm just interacting with a ball, right? Let's say like a basketball athlete, right? I'm just getting them on the court and they're just taking shots, right? I'm interacting with the ball. basketball, that's participating. Or I'm with my team, say like indie drills in football, right? That starts there, or drills in basketball, or whatever it might be. Even in lacrosse, there's very small-sided drills. Can I have the athlete participating with the team, with the stick in their hand, with the ball in their hand, doing the thing, but in a tight space where they really can't get too aggressive? There's only going to be this amount of speed and velocity, or that the angle of change is going to be very not aggressive and they have lots of opportunity to escape if it doesn't feel good, right?
Yeah.
I don't have to do this. And if I can't, I'm going to either get pummeled or hit or fall over or potentially more injured. It's like, if it doesn't feel good, I can just like trot it out.
Bail.
Bail. Or, great. As long as that kind of stuff is happening, that's return to participation. Play is now, I'm starting to get more involved in the bigger drills. I'm actually like playing in practice more. Maybe it's only 50% of practice volume, and then eventually 60, 65. And we're just walking down till the volume is accumulated. And I'm playing pretty much full games or full-sided drills in practice, scrimmages, if you will, at the end of practice. And I can tolerate almost the entire practice with no issues. That's return to play. Eventually, return to performance is now you're getting into games and you're playing at game speed, right?
Got it.
So that's the phase progression. And it's the same when we look at change of direction type programming related stuff, is that, and we can get into this. You want to go straight into
Let's do it.
The programming
Yeah,
piece?
it's perfect segue. Yep.
Okay.
The Coach 'em Up podcast has partnered with Eleiko. Let's go! Not only is Eleiko found in 85% of Power 5 schools, but they also offer at-home solutions from racks, flooring, rigs, barbells, bumper plates, your favorite accessories like straps and weightlifting belts. You name it, Eleiko's got you covered. Go to eleiko.com/coachemup and get access to the same equipment that they're using in the best facilities with the best athletes on the planet.
A lot of this came from other people that have gone before. I've mentioned a few of them. Lee Taft, big one for me growing up. I listened to a lot of him. Jason Fearheller is also another. I'm giving shameless plugs to these people. Like, please go look at their stuff. They're great. They're awesome. Matt McInnes-Watson with the Plus Plyos. So I know you guys have had chats before and had him on. I hope people are familiar with him with the Plyos stuff. I think Matt does a great job. And when I listened to Matt and Plus Plyos, he had this tier system. And I was like, man, that's so simple. Like, if you could make something, not just for coaches, but man, especially for rehab providers where they understand how to program plyos, because most don't at all. Like in the physical therapy world, that is like you'd see one PT show up to a plyo course of any kind 10 years ago. And now you're starting to see like a lot of PTs are asking guys like Matt to come in and like teach us about plyos, because we need to know how to do this and need to know how to regress it. So I looked at that and I was like, man, it's so simple. Just 4 tiers, 4 structures of increasing intensity. Some are a little bit more metabolically demanding and more compliant. Then there's lighter stuff. Then there's somewhere in the middle, and there's really intense stuff. We could do the same with change of direction. Like, there should be a way that we could just look at change of direction in a way that gives providers and rehab providers and even coaches a way to look at this and program that isn't so mystifying and like, I don't know. I'll leave that to the performance coaches. Like, I don't know what we're doing. 5-10-5s. Like, I don't know how to do change direction, because it is a lot. You can't know everything. You can't be good at everything. So also anybody listening to the podcast, don't like think that you have to become an expert in this thing and all the 12 other things you're interested in right now. Like, but if you do want to get better at this, and I do think if you want to work with athletes and you want to return them to sport and you want to get better, like, this is a very low-hanging fruit area. On top of, if you already know plyos, like the force curves and the impulse curves are very similar in decels, that you could learn this very quickly. So on the front end of things, like that deep tier, that tier 1, that level 1 type stuff, that first layer, we're working on more muscular compliant strategies. Like, can you just bend the knee? Right? We talked about the ACL. Or can you just bend the ankle? Can you get into positions that are going to show up when we make this faster? Right? That's a pretty common rehab concept. Like, if you can't do a knee bend, like, I'm not going to ask you to bend it dynamically. Great. Like, that's an easy concept. So you can start with isos if you want to. Holding isos, pushing isos. You could do overloaded eccentrics, whether you're using a K-box or you're using like a cable where you're walking away, like overloading it, having a trainer pull the cable out with you, and now it's overloaded eccentrically and you're just going heel to toe. You could push and pull sleds around, like something that's slow, that's forcing you to bend the knee, to be more compliant and use a muscular strategy. Can you just attain the position and develop some amount of capacity in small spaces that you're getting there? Does that make sense?
Totally.
So that's level 1 base stuff, is just, can you get to the position? Do you have the strength to tolerate it for a period of time? Just like a deep tier plyo. Can you just get down there? It's not a plyo in that it's not under 0.25 second of ground contact time. Right. But is it valuable? Well, yeah, you have to still be able to get into and out of these positions fairly dynamically. And if you can't do that, I'm not going to ask you to do it rapid or with higher amounts of force.
Sure.
So that's ground-based level 1.
Yeah. You don't want to skip first base.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that just makes it very accessible. Like, yes, it's a transition away from the strength side of things. We're making things more compliant, more dynamic, but we're not so far on like pure, hard decels just yet. Now we go into like level 2 type stuff. This is now we're doing like, you could even put speed ladders in this category. I'm not advocating for speed ladders, but like in a rehab process, getting people a lot of touches on their feet where it's like going any faster or wider than that, they might really freak out or it might cause pain, but like they can stay here and they can get some different joint angles happening. They haven't done it in months, potentially. Right. Like, what's the harm in it doing a speed ladder, even if they're looking at
confidence?
Yeah, they're staring down at their feet. They're in pain. Like, they haven't done this stuff in months, dude. Like, give them something. Give them some win that feels like they're being athletic again. And the key is that whatever you choose, make it intense. Like, they should be performing these things at the utmost output that they have. It's your job as a provider to make sure that the constraints are there and reined in enough that they can give it a great effort, but in a way that isn't flaring things up. That intensity should always be there, I think, at least to the best of your ability. Can't always be. I get that there's some injuries that you have to dip your toe in both, but if you don't get people used to just moving slow all the time is my point. So yeah, you have this middle tier stuff, which is kind of or this lighter, this level 2, which is now small spaces. I'm just getting good at locomoting. So I did things that were more static and compliant. Now I'm turning it into a little bit more motion. Can I still maintain some of these contacts and principles that I learned in level 1 technique stuff? Okay. Now this next level, and there's only 4 levels, so we're getting there. Level 3, stay with me, Tim. The next level is like this middle tier stuff where I'm going into like somewhere between 5 and 10 yards. I'm adding some velocity, and the biggest dictators of what's going to make it hard and change of direction is the distance I have coming into or out of that change of direction, and the angle of change I make. Those are the 2 biggest moderators in what makes something more or less intense. Imagine this. If I run 5 yards forward and I only make a slight 30-degree like Y kind of shaped cut, I don't really have to decel that much. I can kind of carry my momentum. There's 1 foot contact that sort of redirect me in that way. Easy peasy, right? Once we get into that like 40 to 60 degree range, now we're starting to play with the middle zone where I do have to decel a little bit, but I can not have to come to a full stop. I don't have to change my momentum from forward to 0 and then get out. Like a 40 to 60 degree, I can maintain a little bit of forward and kind of bend it. Once you go below that, like 65 and deeper, like down to 90 especially, you have to bring your forward momentum to a net 0 before I can cut on a line to my right side. So now I'm asking that athlete to go from whatever velocity they had coming in to a 0 and then change and reaccelerate. That's going to be harder. So now anything deeper than 90 is going to be progressively kind of harder because now I have to decel and now open up more and more and more. And even if I ran 15 meters and I make a 30-degree angle cut, that 1 foot contact might have a pretty good amount of impulse. Like, you have to be kind of aware that if I'm asking an athlete to bang 1 step to the right side or left side and change 30 degrees at full tilt, that's a hard cut. But if I had to do 5 hard decel steps in order to turn back around to go the other way, that's probably more load. I have to account for the fact that they took 3 hard decel steps versus the 1. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So your angle of change and the velocity that you have coming into that angle of change are the 2 predication things, or the dictators of what's going to make something more or less intense.
Is there one that you're going to prioritize in terms of like layering on more intensity before, like, is it an angle of change of direction that you would go prior to adding more velocity into that? Or are you adding more velocity into a certain angle and then like, kind of like, like we've at a 30-degree angle, we have a certain amount of velocity. I feel really good about this. Now let's go to a little sharper degree of an angle of change of direction and reel back in that, and start from a shorter distance.
Yeah, this is a great question. I totally know. Yeah, I understand. I don't have a perfect answer for that because it depends on where the injury is. Like, if somebody has an ankle or somebody has like an Achilles problem, well, now running really fast and making a single cut to one direction might actually be the opposite of what they can tolerate well. They might actually tolerate decelerating harder and sinking into the knee more. Does that make sense? And staying more flat-footed.
Yeah.
Right? So and maybe we didn't cover this, what athletes tend to do in change of direction. We talked about what coaches tend to do wrong.
Yeah, sure.
We never came back and said what athletes did wrong. That was my fault. But athletes will typically stay up on their toes. they'll be really toey when they want to come to decel. They don't get their whole foot down on the ground. They don't get purchased into the floor of like traction.
Yeah.
You can't shoot. Well, you can. This is a funny analogy. Cannon out of a canoe.
Yeah.
Physics wise, you actually can.
It turns out it is possible.
It is possible. And it won't sink the canoe. But it's a good analogy that you understand.
It's just not maybe the best strategy.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know how many people are like rowing canoes into like, D-Day, but anyways, so but the idea is essentially,
they didn't live to talk about it.
Yeah, right. They were out there.
Yeah,
we just don't know about them. So if you're up on the forefoot and I come into a decel, well, it's a very open ankle. Yeah. Right. You can understand that if the heel, the hind foot is free from the ground, you're going to have a lot of movement ability that I could roll over that ankle. And I just don't have enough traction. Yep. And I'm relying on like a big amount of plantar flexion to stop me versus if I get that whole foot down, more of a neutral ankle, I can get up the chain into the knee, into the hip. That's great. That's what we want to see. We want to see whole foot contact. So a lot of athletes will come up on their toes. And if they're good and I can coach them into getting down into the whole foot, their soleus will help and contribute to the decel, but it allows them some other strategies like with the knee and the hip that they can offload the Achilles a little bit. So they might actually do better with a more harder angle of change because I'm stressing the knee a little bit more and I'm offloading the ankle just a little bit more. Does that make sense? Totally. So it kind of depends like, and how are they reacting? Like, oh man, every time I cut to my right side in this angle, like, geez, that outside of the knee, like I got this meniscus thing, right? And it just really is bothering me there, but they can do something else. So you're just kind of having to play and toggle with that. I think both. I would say both. If you have somebody that's just healthy, well, let's say you're going to train the same way you would train sprints or you do plyos twice a week. Well, have a day that's a little bit more angular demanding and then have a day that's a little bit more velocity demanding. Boom, done. You just did XL and Max V. You just did, you know what I'm saying? These principles should all carry over, that you can't say that acceleration is far more important than max velocity training for all athletes, right? It's the same, like both have to play some level of the program. It's just how much are you feeding one or the other at different time points. I think that's probably how I would look at it more. It's a sliding scale. Does that help?
Totally.
Okay.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And then so in terms of like this like kind of phasic approach, is this like the tail end of that, where it's like ultimately the last thing that we are accounting for, at least as it pertains to just change of direction, the angle and the speed, right? Like that's the end of that. And then, okay, so taking it a step further now, it's like, are you thinking, because this is what makes sense in my mind logically, it's like, okay, like we've nailed this change of direction thing, like we know what is happening, and then is like the next step in that progression, agility, where we are introducing an external stop start, we're pointing, we're doing all of those things. And it's like, we're kind of like, maybe not completely starting the process all over again, but like, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure it's kind of athlete dependent, like how much velocity, how much speed are we willing to introduce before they are having to make a split decision?
Yeah.
Right? But I would imagine like going into that, you would probably want quite a high level of confidence before reintroducing that. And I think often what happens is like we kind of skip the change of direction part and go right back to the agility part. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Well, so like, and the last level of that, even in change of direction, is like 10 meters and beyond, or 10 yards and beyond. So like if you ask an athlete to run max effort speed for 15 yards and then abruptly throw on the brakes and say you have a certain bandwidth, or you've set a cone, I would need you to decelerate by this cone after you get through that gate or whatever it is, like that's really hard. And if they can do that, like max full tilt effort, that's never really going to happen in a game where you're running full effort
and have
sprint
to
and have to
fully stop.
Right. So I have a pretty high degree of confidence that we've gotten you to a point that your physical capacity is at a requisite level that like we'd feel good about you being pretty reactive to things that are chaotic.
Yeah.
But where in that phase do you now like start layering in? Do you start from the beginning and now we're back to level 1 in more reactive phases? I would hope not, that you'd have to go like, oh, okay, we made it all the way here. Now let's start all the way back at the bottom. It should be kind of peppered throughout. Okay. So you can add little bits of reactive stuff if they're tolerating like level 2 type stuff really well. Okay, great. Just add like a little pepper of reactive component to it. You already gave them 1 or 2 reps of it. They got it. They're looking good. How can I just give them a little bit of a chance to fail here? How can I just make it a little bit more messy by adding a ball, throwing a cone, moving my body that they got to go to something, you know what I mean? So you're just sort of layering it in all along the way. Now, the beautiful part of this is like some, especially physical therapists, may not have the space in their clinics to do some of this. They may not have even like their own physical capability, or you know, even coaches, if you just haven't been in the game a while, older coach, or you just don't feel really comfortable, like you're coaching this person who's like a premier level soccer player or like an elite NFL guy, and you're like, I don't want to change of direction with this dude. He's way better than me. I just feel like an idiot out here. Okay, like I get that. And so understand that if an athlete has the opportunity to play in their sport, so this is more for coaches who are working with either high school, middle school athletes, or with a current college or pro athlete that is playing in an organization. Great. Now you can dictate the types of drills they can do. I know that with me, you've been able to run to 10 yards and do a bunch of different types of cuts in 10 yards. So now in your drills, when you go back to practice, let's map out with your coach, or let's think about together, even if I'm working with a high school athlete and I may not have access to their coach, what drills do you typically do in practice that you think you could step into? As long as it's within these parameters, this sandbox that I'm allowing you to play in, we're good. Because I've seen you do the hardest thing really aggressively for lots of reps in this space. I'm very confident that as cognitive demand goes up, your intensity will come down anyways, because now they're adding a ball. You're not going to move the same way that I knew I needed to get there as fast as I can. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So the cognitive component of it will slow them down, even if it gets messier. Like it's not as intense on the tissues. So I've given them a parameter, and that's now we're talking about return to participation. I'm participating with my team in a way that I've done level 2 stuff with Coach Q or whoever I'm working with. I know I'm good there. I can play in drills this size. Great. How'd that go? Went good. We've been doing that for a week or two. Everything's going smooth in rehab. We're all moving the right way. No flare-ups, no problem. Great. We're going to level 3 now more often in training. And like, can you do stuff in the 10 to 15 yard realm? And you know what I mean? Walking it down that way. And I feel more confident that I'm releasing them to increasing participation parameters. And then we're just building practice volume on top of that. If they're off season and they have no playing, sure, you probably now have to do a little bit more reactive stuff. But again, if you take Damian Harper and Thomas DeSanto's work, they showed that like with Premier League soccer players versus sub-elite soccer players, yeah, the elites are really good at reactive stuff, and that change of direction qualities are same. Like their physical qualities at those levels, by the time you're looking at like an adult athlete who's like 20 years old or older, their physical qualities start kind of becoming very similar. It's not the differentiating factor as much anymore. But what they found was that you can take an elite athlete, or excuse me, you can take a sub-elite athlete and make him really good at reactive to stuff with the lights and pointing and fingers, and he doesn't become a better soccer player. He just gets better at the test. Right. And that's the problem when we start looking at like, what can I do that's reactive in training? Yeah, you can make them better at it. And are you adding a cognitive perceptual layer? Absolutely. I'm not saying it's useless, but you also then can't say that because you're doing that, it's far and away better. Because my issue that I take up with that is, like I said, if you add a cognitive strain to the drill, you will decrease the intensity. They will not move as fast.
It's kind of like a meathead way of understanding what Q is saying here is like, you know, you're doing a single arm dumbbell press. There's a certain level of output you're going to get out of that.
Sure.
Right. You do a single arm machine chest press. You're going to get more output on the machine because there's less to account for.
Yes.
It's the same concept.
Same concept, 100%. So give people stability, give them control of the environment, let them know the task because you're looking for output. And as a strength coach or as a PT provider, that is your primary role. You need to know if the tissue can output the thing. You don't know what's going to happen in chaos because you can't create the chaos yourself. It's not the game.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not the field. It's not the game. It's not the practice. It's not the player. You're not that. So
not that guy, pal.
You're not that guy. Yeah. And some of us are further away from that than others if you haven't played sports in a while. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it's reality. And they're going to get exposed to things that you just can't possibly always control for, but you absolutely control for for the intensity. You absolutely can control for the outputs.
Yeah.
So do your damnedest to make sure that the outputs are requisite to get them into a place where they can step on the field. That's what we're talking about with change of direction training. And I think that's where some of this argument starts to shift away from like, this isn't reactive, so we don't need to do it at all, into, well, maybe we do need to do some of it because I don't know how they're going to react when things get crazy. I don't even know how they change direction quite yet. I know they're strong, but I don't know what any of this looks like at these joint angles at this speed. So this is kind of that bridge between. We're trying to find some ways to layer in this stuff. And again, this does not have to be, I personally would like it to be part of a session where you do just sprints and just change of direction and plyos, and like that's a day.
Yeah.
You know, like it's because it's taxing,
lifting
dude.
after that, it's not helpful.
Yeah, you're going to be cooked. You can, but you know, your volume and outputs are going to be a little bit lower.
The only thing after a day like that makes sense to me at this point in my career is like maybe some like ISOs for the tendons.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. You know, you could do 2 sets of a squat and move on. Like
literally.
RPE 6-7, move on.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like you can't stack all these things at once. So, but if you had to, whether it's in season with an athlete or, you know, preseason, whatever it might be, they're starting to practice more. Okay, great. You just throttle it down to where I'm like, well, let's do a couple of like band decels against a band, or even like against the band into it, right? If I offload your decel by putting a band around you, now your actual decel moment is less because I have assistants pulling me back versus getting pulled into it. Like that's another way you can toggle it. But just do a couple of that and like make your change of direction now your lift warm up. Pick 3 drills that look like change of direction. Start with the low level stuff where you're just complying, getting warm, getting that reactivity, getting warmed up. Great, there's your warm up. Then go into a level 2 or a level 3 where you're just asking them to come down there, turn around, hit a couple of decels, boom, boom, boom. It took 10 to 15 minutes. You got change of direction working, you're right into the lift.
Yep.
You know, like it doesn't need to be super complicated. The same way we think about plyos. Like, do you need a full hour to do just plyos? No. But using like some of that plus plyos program, I mean, how often do you do that with guys where it's like, we're going to choose a deep tier, a light tier, a medium tier, and like one ping or something like, you know?
Yep.
And you just pepper it in, dude. It's awesome.
Yep.
You know, and I think that you can do the same with microdosing, if you will, the change of direction style training. And I think it only has to be done, you know, twice a week if you want.
That was going to be my next question.
Or you could spread it out. You could do it 4 times a week at really low doses and say, hey, we're only going to do level 1 and 2 here on this day. We're going to do very low dose of level 3 and 4 over here on this day.
Yeah, you can kind of like undulate it out a little bit where it's like, you know, low day, high day, low day, high. Yeah.
There's a lot of ways that you can skin that cat. And I'm not going to say there's one right way because everybody's context in sport and athletes are going to be totally different. But if you can understand the physiological concepts, I think you can just apply all your other training knowledge that you learn in all these other categories of linear sprint mechanics, of linear speed training, plyos, and lifting. Just apply change of direction to the same thing. But I think avoiding it entirely is probably doing a little bit of disservice, especially in the rehab world or especially in an off-season program.
And you have a resource now. People can, you know, because I mean, you look, you know, my deal is like, I've learned the most in my career up until this point by just like doing other people's programs and like actually doing it myself or trying to train the quality myself in addition to working with, you know, my population. So tell us a little bit about that resource too.
Yeah, so there's 2. So we have the confusingly jacked situation that Katie Dabrowski and I are doing where if you follow like the sprint tracks on the confusingly jacked program, I think if it's anything more than 4 days a week, even the 3-day-a-week one has a full change of direction on the last day. So it goes acceleration, max V, and then change of direction on the 3-day-a-week program. Epic. Yeah, sweet. Once it gets down to 2, then we're just focusing on like just get the sprints and plyos, and like you just don't have time bandwidth. But anything else, like you'll see in the confusingly jacked program where I've programmed in change of direction work in there the same way I would do it with athletes. So we have, you know, velocity based stuff where it's acceleration, it's plyos, it's max V, but there's also change of direction peppered in a way that makes sense of how I would program it in a week. Then I also have the change of direction program guide, which is not a training program. And so that people ask me like, oh, is this like a change of direction program to follow that I can just do and train? No, it's more of like this type of conversation where I have a full presentation, tons of work out on the field where I'm demoing all this stuff. I'm layering on like, here's what I would do for this. If this doesn't work, this is what I would do here.
Nice.
And giving tons of different options and drills of what falls within that level and why. And for this injury, probably make more sense to do this type of stuff. So for a coach who's looking to like, I don't know what to do with this person whose knee hurts, that's a great resource because you're going to get lots of options there.
Very cool.
And then I have like multiple, I think I give like 4 or 5 case studies of full written out change of direction programs with all the volume calculations next to it and talking through why I would do certain things for different athletes at different phases of rehab. I have in-season.
Sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, I tried. I will add to it as years go on, I'm sure. But like how I would program across phases of rehab, undulating periodization here. Here's how I do it for an off-season, preseason, and postseason athlete. Here's how I would structure it there. Like, and giving people as much idea of how I look at programming change of direction as possible, as well as all of the technical considerations of what you look for, blocking foot, opening foot, what you're looking for in qualitative assessment of like, did they make the right choice? Is this more of a plant step and I'm hip turning retreat step? Am I trying to close space, open space? Like, there's a lot of different topics that we go into, and there's probably like 7 or 8 hours worth of course content on that, the change of direction program guide. So it's a lot. And like I said, it will grow as years go on. I'll add more to it, but there's that. And then if people just want to do a program, Katie Dabrowski and I have that confusingly jacked program, which if you want to train for Apex, there's a lot of that. If you want to do more change of direction, prepare for sport, there's a lot of that too there.
Katie Dabrowski mentioned, shout out Katie Dabrowski, friend of the
Hell
show.
Yeah.
We love Katie. You guys have been doing a lot of work together and a lot of education together. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this weekend we are speaking in San Diego at a friend of ours, Donald Mole, who's a chiropractor at Kinetic Impact in San Diego, and then we're going to Denver middle of this month to speak as well. And so then we're here in Austin in September.
Epic.
Yeah, it'll be sweet. So we have a number of educational courses, and what we're trying to do is a couple of things. So if people reach out to us, we're trying to become not like a course where this is our course and you can just sign up for it and these are our curriculum. That's already been done by a lot of people. We're trying to reach out to areas that we want to go to or coaches that we know and get a poll of what do you guys struggle with, and we want to come in and present to you on that topic or be consultants, but for like a day or two of creating a whole new course. A lot of work for us each time because we're taking like brand new polls and making full new content.
That's brilliant though.
But we want to like,
how do we have a library of that as time goes on?
Right, because like that's the thing, you can sign up for a course and like some of it's valuable, not all of it's applicable. We want to try to cater to the people that we're speaking to as best as possible. So like we'll be next year in Montana, clinician up there in Bozeman reached out and she said, we just want you to talk more about like the speed and the change of direction stuff and like how we look at it. Great, we can do that. When we come here, we're going to focus all around like low back pain and like managing low back pain and what kind of things we look for, how to train around or with or through low back pain. So like it's always different wherever we go, and we want that. We want it to be, you've never gone to the same course twice, if that makes sense.
Totally.
And so yeah, Katie and I are trying to do that at least once or twice a month in different locations, taking it worldwide. Next year we'll be going to Toronto, which we're working out right now, hopefully Australia after that. So.
Also, shout out Australia, dude. Yeah. The Aussies, I fucking love y'all, man. They love this show. I've gotten more requests from any other country for Apex. Australia is easily the most requested. They're like, please come insert Australian city.
Yes,
from Perth to Sydney. I mean, it's been very, I just know all of Australia. I'm fucking with you. I like Australians.
Oh,
they're the best.
Me too. 100%. Everyone there is super nice too, but they're in the research world. They are so far ahead of the US in the adaptation of.
Well, the barrier to be a coach and to be a trainer in general is so much higher.
For sure. Yeah, they are so good at taking like evidence-based practice, making it practical. They've adopted so much of the current stuff that we are challenged so hard in America. And I don't know if it's because like we have like the social media game and the one-uppers and the novelty, and everybody's trying to make a buck off this whatever sensationalism they can put out, that we stay just in old school dumb shit mentalities here in the States. And Australia is like full tilt, like, no, fuck that dumb shit. We're doing this. This is evidence. We're doing this. And they have just, from a sports science perspective, from performance, they have adopted and gotten it into the lowest tiers of coaching, even on a personal training level at small gyms. Like the trainers I talk to there, they're on their shit. So yes, Australia, you guys are doing something absolutely right. We're bringing Katie Dabrowski and myself. We're bringing healthcare.
You guys are doing 2 speaking events a month?
Yeah, we're trying to. Yeah.
It's a lot.
It's a fair bit. Yeah. But we found that like probably has some of the biggest ripple effects. Like we are so passionate about changing healthcare and changing the way that this stuff does, because as you know, you just said earlier in the podcast, you sent athletes or you received athletes from clinics in town
all the time.
And it's so frustrating. I mean, how many trainers and strength coaches out there are just like banging their head against their desks right now thinking about this? Like how many PTs or chiros or orthos have told your athletes that they can't train, or that their training program is bad, and that you lose these athletes? Like I talk to your trainers here at this sometimes, they're like, yeah, we're losing people to like other PTs somewhere. They're like, I got to take a break from training right now because I got to go do PT for the next 5 weeks.
For Christ's sake.
Dude, you're missing out on like the most beneficial piece of the rehab process by skipping out on the training. That's what you need more of. And so Katie and I are trying to get bigger ripple effects on educating coaches and trainers. And like Confusingly Jacked is meant for coaches and trainers. It's meant for PTs and chiros who don't know how to program training, that they can see, how does Katie and Q actually think about this? How do they take a 6-day-a-week program and get it all the way down to a 3 or a 2? What do they prioritize? We want to show people and educate through a platform that they're also training, and then go speak to these people and educate them on stuff that makes sense, and really try to elevate the field versus like grassroots is fun. Treating one patient at a time is meaningful and great and gives value. We talked about this, like the interest and value in dedicated training for years in the trenches is you got to do it. But at some point, like, we want to make ripples in the field, not because it's more like monetarily successful, but because like it actually changes the conversations and the way healthcare is delivered. That's what we want. So that's what we're doing.
So awesome, man. Good for you guys. Also, quick shout out to Dr. Justin Traxler and Kim over at Athletes Edge here in Austin. What an absolutely outstanding PT clinic.
Yes.
They are few and far between. I think it's time for Q&A.
Yeah.
It is that time. Yeah. Let's do it. Thank you again, everyone. You know, this has now become the standard that a lot of people ask questions, and a lot of people ask really good, thoughtful questions. I can't tell you how much that means to me and the show. It just makes this segment so awesome, and I'm really excited because we have a lot of really good questions for Coach Q today. All right. So I had a few dog-eared here. Okay. This is Dan_Dove.Pursuit. Best advice for non-PTs to become as rehab integrated in their own coaching.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great question, because we talked about just like that's what Katie and I are trying to do, like educate coaches. Like trainers, you're interacting with people one-on-one far more often than anybody else in the tree of what it is to take care of somebody's health. It's like a barber, right? You're going to get your hair cut every 2 weeks or 3 weeks for males. You know, like we get our hair cut a lot, and you're going to talk to your barber about stuff, or like you're spending a lot of time with people is my point. You may see your physician once a year, maybe, right? You may see a PT for a handful of times for a few weeks, and that's it. And PTs get quite a bit in the healthcare spectrum, but like a trainer, you can have the same trainer for years that you saw 2 or 3 times a week. They know everything about you. They know about your life. That like if something comes up as a pain point or you're dealing with an injury, that's the easiest way to intervene on someone's healthcare journey versus getting them in a medical system that's probably not needed and over medicalizing, over imaging, you know, pathologizing very basic aches and pains. Because what happens, when we talked about, is they're going to go see somebody like, oh, you have a pelvic upslip on your right side, and you know you should not bend this way. And now they think they have these problems, and like you could have skipped all that.
Yes,
you know what I mean. So we want trainers to be a part of this rehab process because they are the front line of healthcare. And I don't think that there needs to be as much of a like, well, you don't have a license to do any rehab. However, there are cases where like, yes, working with a provider, working with a PT, like to get some advice, like that's useful. But hopefully some of these courses, and going back to what we talked about earlier, like if you understand biology, if you understand physiology and what tissues get loaded in what way when you do what things, if you can just understand that alone, that at least gets your foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then if things are just not going well after a while and you've set those expectations, sure, like have them work with the rehab provider, but not just to go get palliative care to like make them feel good temporarily, but like to get consultation on like, where are we missing? Does this need imaging? What are the red flags? Are we overlooking a bone stress injury? Are we overlooking a potential tendon problem or a ligamentous problem or something that may require a little bit more medical understanding? But like trainers should feel pretty confident that you have a good purchase. Just don't do all the nuanced, like really not nuance is the wrong word, but the dumb shit that's out there, please, for the love of God. Like the dumb 3-letter acronym CEUs that then you're going to hang your hat on. Please just get rid of that stuff.
This is from Ryan.Blackburn_. And you're going to have to break this down for us a little bit. Okay. So how to identify catastrophizing versus confronts, and how you guide treatment plans for each person. So he's saying there's typically two kinds of PT clients, right?
Yeah,
there's also there's two types of people in this world. We know that. Yeah. Okay, so he mentioned the catastrophizing kind of the person who tends to catastrophize, and the person who tends to confront, and they're ready. Let's fucking do this. Yeah. So can you break those down a little bit? And then how do you navigate those people?
Yeah. So the subscribers, the confronters, they are going full tilt. They want all in.
Fucking love those guys.
Yeah, we love them.
We love those. Yep.
Could be really bad sometimes, though, honestly. In the case of rehab, like there's pushers that they just want to...
Too much, too soon, too fast.
Yeah. They are so concerned with output. And I think this is the message that like people like Alec Blennis and I often get like categorized as or blamed as, that like, oh, we don't care about the person that hurts. And we don't care, and we're just going to like bend people under a bar because output and strength and da-da-da. That's not at all how we treat. And we're not going to, like Katie said multiple times on the podcast that she's been on, like, we don't just make somebody deadlift to like prove a fucking point. Yeah. Right? Like
actually you can deadlift, Susan.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Like we're not doing that stuff. That's not what graded exposure even means. Right? And so, yes, you're going to have confronters who they may have an issue or a pain, and they're not afraid of it at all. They will push into it. They've probably had pain for quite a while. Now they're finally asking you about it because it's continually come up, but it may have lasted for a really long time and they've just been dealing with it. So those are the types of people that you'll see where they want to push. And if you say RPE 7 on their program, it doesn't matter how bad it hurts. They'll chase an RPE 7 from like a training perspective, not an RPE 7 from like a rehab perspective. Like it hurts 10 out of 10, but it's not hard enough. So I'm going to keep going.
It hurt real bad, but I think I may have overshot. It was like maybe 2 reps away from complete failure. It's like, right. Not what we were meaning.
And you can resensitize the nervous system and really put them in a bad way and overdo the training in some ways. So yes, you have confronters, and in general, those folks, they need more of a brake pedal, just on average. You need to pull them back and rein them in and give them very clear instructions of what we're looking for and what we're not looking for. Yeah. Right? The catastrophizers are the folks that are complete avoidant of movement. They're really worried about all the potential medical diagnosis that this could possibly be, all of the things wrong with their body. Oh my God, I woke up wrong in 2004, and I think from that day forward, my joint was out of place. They're just so ruminating, and it's fearful. And every time they feel pain, it's scary. Is this damaging? Am I okay? Am I okay? Is this okay? Like, am I okay? They're those.
What if I have the brain of a catastrophizer and the body of a confronter?
Right. Yeah.
Because I think I'm both of these people.
So maybe I should say,
I think I spiral, and I also say, fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm sending it.
Yeah.
It's really toxic.
It is. No, but this is the reality of dealing with people. Like, you're asking, okay, let's peel back way further back when we're talking about movement and change of direction type stuff. There's an idea of like Laplace's demon. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's a philosophical topic where there's this thing out there that's all knowing, that could know every piece of information of every atom out there. Okay. Could you then predetermine every other output if you knew everything from the starting point? Now, when you look at like weather, right, you try to get all known variables. And if you look at models and if you plug in every variable, it still doesn't matter, because like the butterfly effect type thing, or these small, minute micro changes in one piece of an ecosystem have long-term big downstream effects, right? So even if you can possibly measure and know all the things and be optimal in every way, you're still not accounting for so many micro things that are happening in the background that could have major changes later. Okay. So when we talk about like rehab, we have to look at like the catastrophizers typically will want to know all the little minute things, and we can't possibly. You have to help them embrace uncertainty. Now, I don't think rehab is as easy as saying catastrophizer, confronter. You're one or the other. It's not that.
Yeah.
And somebody who's in one way at one time in life for one reason in one area of the body is a very different person over here.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's always this nuanced complexity thing, and it's a moving target. And I use psych therapy so often in relation to physical therapy because, like, yes, you're playing with a psychological process, and like the mind is hard to change, and thoughts change, and environments change, right? It's no different. We're a physical therapist. You're helping people navigate physical things, right, in a therapeutic way that is not, I'm trying to eradicate or remove this pain entirely from your life, because we don't know what it's going to do.
Yeah.
The same way that depression, anxiety, OCD, we don't know exactly how long it's going to take or what it's going to do at different times or triggers or traumas or whatever thing you have going on. And it could be different at different times for no reason at all.
Yep.
We have no clue. So you have to embrace the uncertainty, and we're just helping people navigate physical things in a therapeutic way. And that's where we get really passionate about, like, if you're not training or you're not helping people find entry points to do the, you know, most physically difficult thing and move the needle in something that impacts long-term health development or chronic disease prevention, you're missing the point of being a healthcare provider. Does that make sense?
Fuck yeah.
All right.
That was fire, by the way. This is from 2X athlete Dan Bach, friend of the show.
Nice.
Dan Bach wants to know. I'm gonna read it just like he wrote it.
Okay.
Do new exercise. Get sore. Do it again. Don't get sore. What adaptation occurred? This feels like a trick question, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. This is so good.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of different directions you can go. I will go from a rehab perspective, since I'm a rehab provider, and that's probably what people are interested in me talking about. And that is that we know that tissue does not have to morphologically change in order for pain to change. So we're talking about soreness. An adaptation at the physiological level does not measurably have to change, meaning that our instrumentation is probably not sensitive enough at this time to pick up whatever changes occurred, even if changes did occur.
Yeah.
But now they're not as sore. There could be neurophysiological effects that just neurologically, I am not as sensitive to the threshold of whatever thing was done to cause whatever level of stimulus or damage, whatever you want to say about it.
Yep.
That now it's a different thing.
Right.
Which is part of why we do graded exposure in rehab. It's not like sometimes with the exercises we choose, like training for rehab isn't always the same as training for strength. Like, I don't need someone on the very first day of an Achilles tendon rehab protocol to give me a Berlin protocol max effort 3 seconds on this, because it might really light them up.
Yep.
Not because I've done anything majorly damaging to the tendon, but boy, they were really sensitive to it.
Yep.
So you might have to start with long duration ISOs, even though I know that's not as optimal for tendon.
Sure.
30 to 45 second holds, and just see how you tolerate that. And let's come at it again tomorrow.
Yep.
You know, or the next day. And you're just trying to play with some of these like early neuro things that are going on. If they're scared of it, they're the way they play into it, the catastrophizer thing, if they're freaking out that like, oh my God, like I thought I wasn't supposed to load this thing, and now you're asking me to load it on day one. I'm already kind of like, I don't know what type of rehab provider you are. And if I come back tomorrow and I'm more sore than I have been for the past 3 weeks, dude, I'm not trusting you.
Yeah.
This is scary. Like, you made me way hurt. So sore, more sore, why that happens, what adaptation occurred. Gosh, and the pain and rehab side of things, or chronic pain, that is a really messy question in a performance perspective. Could it be neurological stuff? And it's the idea that like physical attributes of hypertrophy don't happen until 6 to 8 weeks after training. Yes, they do. They're happening all the while.
It
was just that our ability to measure them
happen
reliably
around that time.
Right. But it was always happening probably all the time.
Yeah.
It just became measurable at this time point. So why does somebody get sore? I don't know if we have a perfect answer for that, Dan.
My mind goes to, you know, the difference between adaptation and acclimation.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
Where, like, for whatever reason, that input isn't giving us that response.
Yep.
And it's like, I don't know that, and Dan, I think you've stumped us both here. You know, like I think we there's some pragmatic viewpoints around this that make a lot of sense, but I don't know that anyone has like the answer to that, right?
Yeah. I mean, sarcolemma disruption, you know, is something that gets out there. Swelling. Do you have neurological input that's a novel stimulus because you can be really sore the first? Yeah, I don't know. But here's something else, like in the chronic pain. I had a client this morning, so if he's listening, which I think he does listen to the show, this is about you, buddy.
Yep. Let's go.
Homeboy has had a hard time getting back to running and has significant shin, calf, ankle type pains with running. Has even had knee pain with running. And we've been pretty conservative on like doing progressive running type stuff. Even plyos, like he'll get kind of lit up sometimes for doing very low pogos. Well, guy goes with his buddies to a concert and moshes for like 3 hours. Just jumping up and down repetitive pogos.
This guy sounds tight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just getting after it with the friends and the boys, and the music's playing, and jumping up and down, moshing for 3 hours. No pain. Zero pain whatsoever. Was able to go the whole night, came home the next day, felt totally fine. And now he knew that he may have to modify training going forward because that was a good input. But like the conversation around why does someone have pain when loaded in this way, and contextual effects versus over here they didn't. You can trick somebody into like bending over and picking up a pencil or bending over and tying their shoes,
feeling no pain,
and then you go for a for a clinical test. Okay, we're gonna see how far you can bend over, and they're like, oh man, God, it's the test now. And they're all in their head, but they just bent over 3 times and nothing happened.
Yes.
Why does that happen? I'm not saying that pain is all in people's head, but there is a threat response that's happening. There's all kinds of things that Katie talked about at the Coach 'em Up conference, where pain initially starts in the amygdala, starts moving out from subcortical into more cortical brain things, where mood, behaviors, attitude, stress start playing more into pain. So like all of these things, this big mixed bag of pain physiology, and like that question is actually a great question of bringing up like some of this like weird uncertainty nuance of how do we navigate pain, and why do things like manual therapy make things feel better if they don't change anything, right? Like that all plays into this big conversation. So I actually love the question. I thought it was really good. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan, for good questions. Okay, this one's fun.
Yeah.
Ryan Little Training wants to know, would you rather do 1,000 push-ups, 150 pull-ups, or hold a 5-minute plank every day for the rest of your life?
Oh my God.
So your options are, and I want the audience, I want your opinions on this. Would you rather do 1,000 push-ups a day, 150 pull-ups a day, or hold a 5-minute plank every day for the rest of your life? I know my answer. I want you to go first.
I think from a practical standpoint, in terms of time management, the plank makes the most sense. Like just to bang that out, that would make the most sense. But then the Dan John little, demon on my shoulder, because I grew up like training around Dan John, was like the pull up.
Do the pull ups.
Get really good at pull ups.
But I think like you could break it up, you just crank out, 10, 15 times a day over the course of a day. By the way, your back in 5 years would be the thing of legend.
Oh, dude. Can you imagine
a
V?
Yeah. The 1,000 push-ups, I don't think I would be capable. Honestly.
I know.
I don't think I can do 1,000 push-ups in a day. And if I could, it wouldn't last long.
No.
Something would fall apart.
Absolutely. I'm thinking like my shoulders are breaking off.
No fucking chance.
Like, I think you could get there. But to just cold turkey start at like, I'm doing 1,000 days starting right now.
Yes.
I think you would have some issues.
Someone's doing it. Herschel Walker's out there still doing it.
Oh yeah.
All right. So I think we're both in agreement. The 5-minute plank it makes the most sense.
It's practical. We could do it right now on the pod. We could just start every podcast with a 5-minute plank.
All right. Wow. We haven't even left one page of questions yet.
Good.
All right. This is Manny _@_upstream. Now he put a number on this, but what are 3 to 5 core principles you wish every physical therapist adhered to? Let's do away with the numbers. Are there some core principles that are really vital to you that you think it would help most PTs?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned them to this point. Katie and I talk a lot about this in our courses as well. Is like one of the first things is understanding physiology and biological plausibility. There's a lot of things out there. There's a lot of courses that you can take. There's a lot of methods and treatment styles and things that really don't have a lot of physiological sense making. Like there's no way that actually causes the adaptation that you think it does.
Yeah.
And I think that if we break down physiology, like something has to meet at least a requisite amount of stimuli to create a said adaptation. And I think oftentimes we play way too much in the sandbox of things that probably don't yield a benefit. For example, I know Blennis got blown up for this on Instagram, and we've talked about it all the time, but all the corrective exercise stuff.
Yeah.
And the mobility training. Like so many of the ones that get so popular on Instagram don't actually have the stress required to actually cause any kind of meaningful adaptation for any amount of duration or time. Like even like a stretch, like stretch research is like, you gotta hold a stretch for over 2 minutes and it's gotta be pretty fucking uncomfortable. Like it should create some nausea almost. Like that's
stretching, like true stretching and mobility training, utilizing like stretching as the primary method is very hard.
Oh dude, yes.
I know many people in my life who have said, I'm gonna do the splits. I just want to do that. I'm like, good fucking luck, pal.
Yeah. Dude,
if you didn't grow up doing dance or gymnastics, good luck.
You can get there. You can absolutely get there. But the amount of effort it will take is a lot more than
I would rather do a 5-minute plank every day the rest of my life.
Yes, that's a good comeback. Good callback. Yeah. So that's one. I think the other one is like psychological type stuff. You have to understand that you're working with people. People are messy. Their needs, their wants, their behaviors, that you are going to do pretty suboptimal training that starts looking pretty optimal if given long enough, because people are just messy, and that's just life. And the optimal bro culture probably needs to die to some degree, because nothing is ever optimal. And I think the elite sport coaches probably get way too into that sometimes at the detriment of their athletes. Like even in change of direction, like so averse to volume, like the athlete has to change direction a lot to play on a field. Like they've got to do it repetitively and maintain output for 4 quarters or 2 halves. Like it's a long time to be able to do that. And if you're just like, oh, we can't do any amount of volume, like we're so averse to volume, like are you really preparing them? Yeah. And are you trying to stay way too optimal all the time? Like we talked about, like, 6 to 8 weeks combine training, you can get very specific, but you can't train year round for 2, 3, 4 years at a time that way, even though it gave you good results in that moment. Yeah. And you'll hear NFL vets or even, coaches talk about it like, I shouldn't have lifted all those heavy weights because I got really good when I wasn't. It's like, yes, you got better when you pulled away from lifting because you lifted before. That's what made you better, because you had the underpinning. So like physiological underpinnings and then psychological things, those two things always have to be at play in the core principles. And the last thing that I would say, just to get to our number of 3, would be to you have to understand that even though tissue doesn't have to change, or you don't have to create a huge physiological change to change pain, your goal as a healthcare provider in PT is to improve somebody's health over the long term. And we currently have an epidemic of chronic diseases and problems in unsustainable healthcare methods that have led us to a crisis in our country's healthcare, that if you're not helping people train, become physically active, showing them ways to do that, finding entry points, helping them work with people like nutritionists, helping them work with people like psych therapists, you're really underserving. And just putting somebody on a table and giving them pain relief in the moment, you've completely missed what it is to create a sustainable healthcare model for our country and the world. And that those 3 things I would probably say are foundational.
Fucking banger. Q is tearing these questions up.
Hopefully.
Honestly. All right. Coach Jake Bennett wants to know how you would handle being taught outdated information in PT school. So you're so here's the problem. Jesus. This is tough because, we have access to the internet now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And there are good providers putting out information. And then I can just imagine being in PT school, and I'm following people that are putting out really good, well thought out content around specific subjects. And then I go into school the next day and my professor is telling me the equal opposite. Yeah. Right. How would you navigate that, Q?
I can tell you how I did.
Even better.
I was in the principal's office a lot.
Okay.
I questioned a lot. I was fresh off of a master's degree in exercise physiology, working in labs, like I said, with Eric Drexler and Greg Nuckols. Like, I had learned a lot to that point and had interacted in some of the highest levels of strength and conditioning at the University of North Carolina, working with men's and women's basketball who were winning national championships, with people coming through those facilities all the time that I got to rub shoulders with. It was like, some of the things in PT school were very underwhelming. And I questioned a lot of it. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, there's a group or a school of people right now who are really pushing that PT school is so bad and it's the worst thing ever and school is just useless. And I tell people all the time that ask me, like, should I go to PT school? And I say, no, I don't think you should, unless it feels like a calling, because you're not going to learn something out of PT school that you couldn't have learned otherwise. And I don't think that PT school is all just bad. There's a process and a vetting, and there are things that you get exposed to, like you need to know red flags, you need to know neurological deficits, you need to know things that could be very problematic and what to do do about it.
Could you make an argument that it actually is helpful to have the dichotomy of understanding like what is ineffective relative to what is effective? Like, how much better of an understanding do you have of what is useful by knowing what perhaps isn't?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily going, spending $200,000 on a school for, but playing devil's advocate.
Yeah, you're paying over $200,000 for a school that then the average PT salary out of school is like $60K. Like, fuck off. Like, that's crazy. Like, what we've done to PT in this country is absurd that anybody would sign up for that. So that's why I tell people, no, don't go to PT school unless you feel like absolutely called to it. But yes, to your point, I do think that knowing both sides of that coin would be great. And does PT education curriculum as a whole need to really update in terms of like the S&C and therapeutic exercise and that kind of thing? Yes. But they're also educating PTs who are going to be working with traumatic brain injury, with spinal cord injury patients, with cauda equina syndrome in a hospital, and now you're looking at lab values with cardiorespiratory people. Like,
so the scope is much larger.
Yeah, you're asking people to become generalists, and so you can't be good at all the things. So the people that want to do sports rehab and they look at training and like, yeah, dude, you're not going to get that at PT school because they have to educate for like all these other things. And that's where like, okay, another project that Katie Dabrowski and I are working on in the coming future is a textbook for PTs that is a S&C textbook to be in PT curriculum. So that's
tight.
Soon to come, writing chapters for that kind of stuff. Who knows how many years that'll take, but essentially we want to have that education in the PT program because it's not. And maybe PT, I don't know if you lean on the side of saying, hey, we need more education and we need to say, hey, let's extend the years of education to allow PTs to then specialize like we do with medical doctors and say, hey, you have to do a year or two internship or rotation fellowship in these types of programs. Some of that exists. It's not very strong right now, like fellowship, residency type stuff, or an OCS or CSCS. Like these kind of things exist, but they're not great. And maybe it could be better as years go on. But that's just society. And dude, fitness, nutrition, we all fight these same uphill battles in all industries. So I'm also not saying like PT is uniquely bad. And I think some people that ask these questions, they're in it right now. Like that's their wall that they see is they're in PT school seeing how bad it is, but like go to any other industry, even tech. Totally. And sales, and there's dumb shit being sold all the time. So it's not unique to your field. This is just human nature.
That's a really great point. That is a phenomenal.
Hopefully that at least.
No, I don't think that's actually, when we have these conversations, isn't talked about enough. Is that like, it's not unique. No. It's not unique to S&C. It's not unique to PT, personal training, to nutrition coaching. It's not unique to any of it. That pervades every industry. Yeah. And if you want to get really good at it, you're going to have to do additional work, which brings me to the next fucking question. Okay. Segue. Matt Clark, 216, wants to know, and this I think piggybacks really well. What are any recommended further development avenues for a new grad physio to acquire new skill or knowledge? So, and I, not to reframe his question entirely, but like, let's do one for the new grad, and then for the person who's like, maybe he's like, I'm not interested in doing PT school, but I want to be effective as a physio. Are there some basic textbooks or other people in the field that you would say, hey, go learn from these people, go learn from these places? What are things that you find value in? Yeah,
that's a great question. Because and I struggle with that only because when I was first coming up into this, I took every course, good and bad. Right. I talked to everyone. I spent so much money. I became so
relatable.
Yeah, man. I know you've talked about this, dude. I've gone to all the PRI courses. I went to all the FRC. I did all the manual therapy.
The fact you were able to do all of those, you're a stronger man than me.
I mean, dude, a lot of money and a lot of time. But it was like if there was one that was going to be dropped within driving distance or something like that, it was just going. Yeah, it was the same idea with PT school. That now I don't think I regret it, but it was like, hey, this is going to cost this much money. And at that time in life, it was like, I don't fucking care how much it costs. I want to know. Yes. I have to know. It'll eat at me not to know the other side of this fence that like I took every course, good and bad and everything in between. Yeah. And I listened to all the people. And even now I still will tune into podcasts. I follow people online that I probably really disagree with. And sometimes I think just getting exposed to all of it early in your career can be good, and not really taking any stock in any one particular direction. Just kind of like,
What was the driving force for you behind that? Because for me, it was a combination of like ambition, but also just like an unrelenting sense of inadequacy that if I didn't know, I was fucking worthless.
Probably that, Tim. Probably that. I would love to say that it was like my ambition and drive to learn and grow as an individual, but honestly, it's pure fucking insecurity.
Yeah, it was just much deeper, much darker, much more sad.
Yeah,
much more sad.
I was maybe chronically underperforming in sport. That I felt like if I knew more, I'd get better. That if I just could know more, I could do better. And so it was just more of that.
Hell yeah,
I just had such an imposter syndrome constantly that if I didn't know this thing or I wasn't a specialist in that thing,
you were worthless.
I didn't have a seat at the table. And so I had to take it all. So to that question, I think sometimes there's value and you just can't. I understand that financial obligations, time, you can't spread yourself so thin, and now everybody has the affordances to do that.
Totally.
So I'm not saying that that's the answer. I'm just telling you, like, I came from that background, and I do attribute a lot of where I landed at my ability to perceive high quality evidence and value when it was presented and sift through the stuff that wasn't.
Pattern recognition matters here.
Exactly. And I think pattern recognition has now led for me to say, okay, some groups or people that I think are doing a good job in the PT education space. Katie and I obviously are going to say ourselves, we're biased, but outside of us, I think E3 Rehab does a really good job, and everything that came from them, and Barbell Medicine with Jordan Feigenbaum and Austin Baraki and Derek Miles, when they were, up and coming, like that whole group of people did a really great job giving great evidence-based advice. I think they do a good job, and I'm missing a lot here, but I think maybe not to give specific names so much, and more to say, if you can understand the patterns of the base principles that I talked about of the question earlier, what are the three biggest things that you would say if a group is doing those three things really well and isn't just giving you quick fixes, isn't saying this is the way that you do this and this is our protocol. I'm very systems and protocol averse because all models are wrong, some are useful, right? The Carl Block, the good quote there, that I think people that really hang their hat on, like, this is our protocol and system and it works like this every time and this is what you do for low back pain, it's like, no, you don't. Because when is it? There's probably so many examples where that didn't work. And they just didn't come back to your clinic and you thought they got better because they didn't come back. So your survivorship bias is telling you that, like, your frame of reference is going to continue to get more and more biased the longer you do it. So I think that if you can zoom out and see the forest through the trees, that's a good place. But I wish I had, like, if you message me on Instagram or you reach out to me, email me, I can give you some more directed advice, and based on where you want to go and what you want to learn, I can answer that question more individually.
All right, we're going to do one more. This is from Mike Ryan _03, habitual good question asker. When did you know you were in the right field of work doing exactly what you wanted? Are you there now?
I was going to say, can I answer that in like 20 years? Because I don't think I am. It's ever changing. It's always evolving. What I did 3 years ago and what I thought I wanted to do 3 years ago is very different than what I want to do now. And I actually have seen myself not being a PT in 5 years from now. I don't know what I would do because I'm not as hell-bent passionate about any one particular thing, but I don't see it as like, I'm doing the thing that I always want to do for the rest of my life. I don't think I've arrived yet, my friend. That's a great question. I see this as ever moving.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Honestly,
would you agree, Tim? I mean,
totally. I mean, you and I talked downstairs when we were working out, like the things that I found really exciting 2 years ago and the things that I find to be really exciting professionally today are two different things. And like the interesting about setting goals and achieving them is that, like, and look, like, I've learned this about myself is like having something to work towards is actually the part that I enjoy.
Yeah. The post-achievement depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see the people like standing and they've won the Super Bowl, confetti's coming down, and you just see this like look of like defeat.
Yeah. Like, fuck, this is what my whole life was moving towards.
Now what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel the same.
And so, yeah, and much like training and the relationship that I have with training, I've tried to reframe my professional career and being in love with the process and being excited at the prospect of what am I capable of? Will I ever sprint 23 miles an hour? Don't know. But Maybe,
dude.
perhaps. I'm going to shoot my shot,
This is your year, Tim.
It might be.
Might be, dude.
I just got to get this hamstring tendonitis figured out. We're getting there.
We're
getting there. Thank you for helping there, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, same thing professionally. Like, there are things that I set out to accomplish, that I accomplished, that I said when I set out to do them, that once I get there, that'll be it. And never once has that been the case.
Right.
So, and it's not for lack of gratitude or I'm very happy and grateful for the life and things I've been able to do. But
yeah, man,
there we are.
Yeah, it's like what gives you meaning. This is a great frame for like rehab too. Is like you hurt and you can't do the things you want to do. What would you do if you didn't hurt? And then like take yourself back to the times that you didn't hurt. You still had insecurities. You still had things that you weren't accomplishing, that you couldn't do, that you wanted to do, and you wanted to get better. It's all this sliding scale of a spectrum. And if you can change people's minds to think about that in rehab of like, dude, I'm just navigating and chasing a different goal right now, it becomes fun. It's like this next thing that gives me purpose, that gives me value, instead of it being this like hellish, awful purgatory that I can't escape from. And if I could just get over this, I could finally enjoy life. And it's like, dude, you can enjoy life right now by enjoying the process. 23 miles an hour. That might be in your future, dude.
Yep.
But fuck, if you aren't going to do everything you can to get there, and getting there is the fun of it, you know what I mean? Like the process of getting there.
Yeah.
Because what do you do once you hit it, Tim?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, dude.
I guess I got to try for 124.
Yeah, man. Like, we're going to keep going, brother.
Yep. Or rip these hamstrings off the bone.
Snap.
Okay. Segments. This has been so much fun. We're going to do 2 segments today. Okay. Right. Rant and rave. Okay.
So much of that.
We have, but that's okay. This will give us an opportunity to do something a little more succinct.
Yeah.
Word of the day. Rant and rave. This is brought to you by OVR. We love OVR. I mean, what can I say?
We do.
We really do. Did you know that they have a force plate out now? Actually, so I've been hiding something from all of you. I have had the force plate here. I've been using it, and it is awesome. It's really sweet. I can do my overcoming ankle ISOs and look right down at the force plate and get the force reading of what I'm doing in real time. I love that. Shout out OVR. Click the link. Save some money. Buy stuff. Rant and rave. Rant. What's something that you're seeing right now in the PT landscape that you're like, this one thing in particular is kind of grinding my gears right now? I'd like to see less of it. And then what's a rave? What's something that you're seeing that you're like, actually, this is pretty sweet, and I would love to see more of this?
Yeah. We've touched on a lot of the ranty parts of PT in particular. I think PT gets a really bad rap, especially when we talk to people that are coaches and trainers. Is like PT is almost always traditional PT. It gets this rap that it's just low load clamshells, like 3x10, just kind of easy exercises. And quite frankly, what we said about the nuance of pain, like, unfortunately, a lot of that stuff works for pain, because anything kind of works. And like 70% of people who do nothing about their pain regress to the mean of getting better anyway. So it's kind of like, which is, I mean, I don't know. So I think that a lot of times online, a lot of the followers in the PT space that really grind my gears, they get a lot of attention. They post a lot of corrective exercises, a lot of, move your joint here in this position and pattern, and rib cage here and and they get really myopic about things that have such little bearing on training. And you're not talking about like how you modify someone's training. One of the trainers here that was talking about, they had a client that was a runner, and they'd been going to PT for like 6 months for this like ankle thing, and not once did the PT actually talk to them about their running training program and give them a progressive running. They just kept doing more exercises and palliative care in the clinic, but 6 months. And unfortunately, I wish I could say that was more rare, and it's just not.
Yeah.
And so, God, PTs, like, fucking do better than that. That's insane. That's the standard of traditional PT care. So I'd say that's what I rant about, is that side of things.
Better
is what like PT generally is, and like I'm trying to like really shake that up. It's not PT in my mind, because again, what's physical therapy? Like, anyways, rave. What am I raving about? Gosh, there's a lot to rave about. OVR force plates? Are you kidding me? That deserves a rave.
If they don't chop this up and use it for an ad later, it's a huge ball drop. Okay. Right. But true, it is wonderful.
Hope to hear that.
You know what? Actually, real quick, can I derail us?
Yeah, dude.
I noticed. So they dropped this product, and then I'm chronically online. Okay, it's bordering a problem, and but I saw in some pockets of the performance and fitness landscape, just people just all out shitting on the use of force plates. You know, which like I historically I wouldn't say I've been someone who shits on force plates, but like I only use them when necessary or when it makes sense. Like, I'm not going to go above and beyond to get force plate data. I'm not going to use. I'm not going to do it.
Sure.
Refuse to do it, actually. But do you have any opinions or takes on that? Because it does feel like there's a crowd that's like force plates, and then we use force plates, and then we do nothing with that data. And then on the other end of that spectrum, it's like, for fuck's sake, do we really need a force plate for this?
Yeah, right. I think sports science has, and I don't mean this to be overly pejorative, but I think sports science has really struggled to prove their value in a lot of ways over the years, that they keep finding new ways to provide just more data.
Yeah.
That if I can just do more things and show I can do more stuff, I become more valuable to the program. I don't know how yet, but I'm more valuable because I can do more things. It's like the underpants.
Look at all these charts, coach. Yeah. Look at all these fucking charts.
Exactly. We got charts on charts, data on data for years. You know, training hasn't changed at all. Injuries is
more.
Yeah, maybe more. But we got data on it now.
Yeah. Now we know how it happened. Kind of,
right.
Not really.
You know, and I think from like epidemiological data, research, usage, some of that could be pretty useful in like large data sets to pick up patterns. I think that's great, you know, for sure. I think that we probably put an over-reliance on some of these things because at the end of the day, if you test something in the control to chaos continuum and it's very controlled, we still don't have perfect assurance that it will show up in a chaotic environment, right? But we're hedging our bets that, you know, the reverse Marilyn Monroe kind of thing again. And I think that the force plate data has its use, but some people really use it all the time for all these metrics and values that doesn't change the output of training that you're going to do anyways. And I think and Greg Lehman talks about this, who's a chiro and a PT, he's like, if the test that you're using doesn't significantly alter the protocol or the training that you're going to do as a result of that test, then it's useless. And that's where we talk about like medical imaging for low back pain specifically. If getting a low back image doesn't change what we do about it, it doesn't significantly alter the course of care, you should not get an image. So for most low back pain, like well over 90% of acute, even like pretty severe low back pain that doesn't have red flags, it's contraindicated to image it because it doesn't alter your plan of care. If somebody has a tendinopathy situation and it smells like a tendinopathy, looks like a tendinopathy, is responding like a tendinopathy, do you need to image that tendinopathy? No, because you're going to probably do the same course of care to start anyways. Now, if it's been lasting for 8 months and not responding, maybe. But that's what I'm saying with force plates. It's like sometimes I think the eggs in that basket don't yield an actual output of any kind that changes what we do with it. So like, why add that? You know, but I don't think they're useless. I think they have a very good use. It's just, that's my opinion.
I'll tell you what, my favorite use is ankle overcoming ISO. I see the numbers. It makes the exercise go burr. I know that.
That's awesome. I love that. Honestly, that's a great application. Serious. That's sick.
Okay. Second and final segment of the day. Unsolicited, solicited advice. This is brought to you by Aleco. Yes, they still sponsor the show. And yes, we are still the only known link in the universe, at least this universe, that you can click on and save money at Aleco because they're just that good. Use code CoachEmUp10 and you get 10% off everything you can purchase through that link. Okay. You know, you're a member at this gym. I get to see you almost every day. At some point, post-training, you're going to say to yourself, you know what feels nice? That sounds good. I'm going to go sit in the sauna.
Ooh.
You're going to go sit in the sauna. And for a minute, let's say about 12 minutes, let's say 15 minutes precisely, because that's about right when my inner voice starts telling me you need to get out. It's a hot sauna. Okay. You're 15 minutes deep. Someone walks in and parks it right next to you. Okay.
Yeah.
And they just kind of start yapping, as they do, even though you're fighting for your life.
Right.
Right. I'm saying this because this happens to me frequently here.
Okay. Good.
This may or may not be a real example.
So I'm giving you ammo for the next one.
Whatever reason you feel compelled, convicted, you know that you need to share this piece of advice with this person. It cannot be around how close they are sitting to you. It has to be something more larger philosophically. So this can be about life. It can be about training. It can be about anything. What is that piece of unsolicited advice in this hot sauna?
Hey, did you know that heat shock proteins are actually really inappropriately named and not activated by heat alone?
Really?
Yeah, it's not really a thing.
No, time out, because this is amazing.
Heat shock protein, I mean, sure, heat can induce some of that stress.
This is so good.
Yeah, this is us in the sauna now.
Okay, here we go.
But heat shock, or those particular proteins that heat shock proteins are referencing, are more attuned to just general systemic stressors of any kind. It's not necessarily just heat. Now, heat has unique benefits in terms of like heat training from an efficiency standpoint, circulatory system, regulating like mitochondrial flow in and out of energy use. But like heat shock protein is not necessarily just heat activated. And that's probably a little bit of a misnomer in the general
Son of a
space.
bitch.
Yeah.
So it's just any stressful event will cause an activation of this. Wow.
Of those, yeah, to a degree. Yeah, it doesn't have to be just heat. That's probably a little bit of a misnomer. I'd share that with somebody in the sauna that may be obsessed with heat shock proteins.
This is the most informational, unsolicited, solicited advice segment I have, and the most apropos. I mean, incredible.
Credit to Alec Blennis, actually, who brought that to my attention, and then I did some reading afterwards. This was like a year or two.
I can't tell you how many times Blennis has posted something, and I've gone, well, wait a minute. Huh. And then I do some digging, and I go, son of a bitch.
Damn it.
Blennis has done it again. Yeah. Blennis is smart, dude.
He's very smart. Starting in something like a mathematics and physics program, and like that's what he was going to do at Georgia Tech, to like, I think I'm just going to coach. I'm like, dude, you were like, you're in the savant level of like mathematical thinker, and now you want to do coaching and training. Like, you're going to pass a lot of us.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just mogging everybody.
Right.
Q, thank you. This was awesome.
Yeah, dude.
Had a blast. Where can people find you, connect with you? What are some new things that you have on the horizon?
Yeah, man. So best place is probably Instagram right now, coach_Q_physio. On the IG or the TikToks, I don't really do much on TikTok. Pretty much IG. I have a website, findphysiotherapy.com. On the link tree bio, in the bio of Instagram, you can find confusingly jacked sign-up programs for that, which is $50 a month to get on one of the best training programs, everywhere from 6-day to 2-day-a-week programs for both hybrid athletes who want to do more long distance running and lifting, as well as sprint, change of direction, and lifting programs. So you got a lot of offerings in that, as well as if you buy our swag, that swag goes directly to sponsor athletes to compete signups for Apex or High Rocks. Like,
incredible.
Yeah, whatever swag you buy, 100% of that funds goes to sponsoring an athlete.
Confusing amount of value.
Confusing, absolutely. Thank you, Katie Dabrowski, for the name. It's so good. So we got that. We got education that Katie and I do, and we'll post about that. There's I do a lot, at least once a month, with Craig Liebenson and his group with First Principles of Movement, where we talk about topics. We've done tendon, we've done femoral acetabular impingement was this past Sunday. We're going to do a shoulder one where we just take a clinical case or paper and talk for about 2 hours with a group of roundtable people if they want to know about all things about that type of thing. So we have some mentorship platforms there, and then the Change of Direction program guide that I put out. You can find that with the link in my bio as well if you want to learn about all the stuff we talked about on the podcast today, of how to program, how to think about it with different injuries, how to progress it, phase it, what to think about change of direction. It's a good resource for that, and hopefully it'll get continually added upon, and you'll have access for a lifetime for any future additions that come to that program. You'll have it.
Incredible. Q, you got a lot going on, rightfully so. Good for you. Thank you again, everybody. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening and watching. And we'll see you next time. Peace.